individuals that have some meetings to get to this afternoon. So the first item that we have for today is going to be the Department of Transportation. And I would invite that Kyle Anderson with Kansas Legislative Research Department give us the briefing on the budget for the Department of Transportation. Kyle.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kyle Anderson with KLRD, and I will be presenting the budget for the Department of Transportation. If we begin on page 1, the Department of Transportation is a cabinet-level agency with the secretary appointed by the governor. Their mission is to coordinate the planning, development, operations of various modes and systems of transportation and administrate and planning of aviation, highways, public transportation, railroads, and waterways. In figure 1, the general summary table, this is primarily a fee-funded agency through the State Highway Fund. For 2024, they had a total budget of $2.34 billion and have 2,288.8 FTEs. In fiscal year 2025, they're requesting $2.56 billion and are in 2,345 FTE positions. This is a 9.5% increase in all funds. For fiscal year 2026, they are requesting $1.68 billion and 2,381.5 FTEs for a 34.4% decrease over the 2025 budget. Moving to the page 3, the first plot shows that the 2025 approved was a slight decrease over the 2024 actuals, and their revised request is a small an increase thereupon. And if we move to figure 3, the budget comparison, you can see that their total request is for $2.56 billion, which is a $222 million increase over 2024 for 9.5%, and $233 million increase over their 2025 approved request for a 10% increase. Moving on to figure 4, the 2025 budget summary request. They have no SGF funds, so there is no SGF appropriation for line number 1. Line number 2, they have no supplemental requests. And moving on to other changes, this amounts to $233,345,389 and 56.3 FTE positions. Line item number 3, the first of those other changes, is for highways and bridges expenditures, and they're requesting $179.4 million, and this is primarily due to an increase in projects of modernization, preservation, and local construction of bridges across the state. Moving on to page number 4, the fourth item is a revised request for building construction expenditures, and this is for $28.6 billion. The primary cause of this is something that most of the legislature heard about last year with respect to the District 1 headquarters. The initial intent of this project was to complete in the fiscal year 2024, which did not end up happening. They ended up only spending $1.6 million on the project at that time and moved the main construction expenditures to fiscal year 2025, resulting in the large increase for this year, or this fiscal year. Moving on to item number 5. This is a request for architects and engineer contractual services, and the request is for $10.0 million. And these are contracted architects and engineers predominantly on modernization and preservation projects for the year where there are not sufficient staff, architects, and engineers working in KDOT to cover all the necessary projects, so they contract some of that work out to private engineers and architects. Line item number 6 at the top of page 5 is a revised request for innovative technologies aid to locals program, and this is a request for $9.9 million, and this is primarily a result of expenditures for broadband service expansions and technologies such as federal safety requirements, mobility improvement, and new transportation technologies that they are implementing across the state. Line item number 7 falls within the global FTE addition removal, but that is for regular maintenance, salaries, and wages, a request of $4.1 million and 45 FTE positions. And the maintenance workers cover everything from general road maintenance, things like spraying weeds in between the highway mowing, and equipment repairs, as well as the maintenance for weather events. Line item number 8 at the bottom, towards the bottom of page 5, is for construction, land, and interest in land purchases. Requests are $2.2 million. These purchases are primarily related to the modernization program projects going on as part of the IKE program. Line item number 9 at the bottom of page 5 and continuing on to the top of page 6 is also falls in the global FT addition removal. This is for construction inspection salaries and wages, and they are requesting $1.7 million and 26 FTE positions. These are field engineers and technicians that do everything from material testing of the on-site materials to oversight inspection and final approval of construction projects. Line item number 10 at the top middle of page 6 is a revised request for a reduction in salaries and wages at the local projects program. This is a decrease of $197,435 in 2 FTE positions related to an administrative and engineering vacancy in the program. Line item number 11, towards the bottom of page 6, is a similar decrease in the salaries and wages within the Office of the Secretary for $257,347 decrease in 1.5 FTE positions related to completed research positions that they had going on before this. Line item number 12 at the bottom of page 6, carrying on to the top of page 7, is a request of a decrease in salaries and wages for the operations support program of $668,984 and 9.5 FTE positions. These positions were moved from operations support to the administrations program. And line item number 13 at the top of page 7 is an all other adjustments decrease of $1.5 million and 1.75 FTE positions. And these are changes in staffing that are not currently needed for related to transportation planning, aviation, and the rail as freight programs. Any questions for fiscal year 2025?
All right, thank you, Kyle. So I guess my first question is in regards to items number 3, 5, and 8. Wouldn't they be considered as components of the IKE transportation plan, or is this, they're asking for additional funding outside of that?
Mr. Chairman, all these projects are related to the IKE program, but they are increased expenditures for the projects that were planned for this year. A lot of those increases are a result of what's the word I'm looking? Inflationary increases. I believe Vice Chairman Billinger heard during the normal LBC presentation that since the IKE program started, they've had a 30% inflationary increase over the expected projections that they had started off with for IKE. So as a result of that, some of those expenditures have increased the prices of their projects.
So these are projects that are going on right now?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Kyle in regard? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so on the summary that's found on page 1, just taking a moment to look at the revenues. So can you refresh our memories? Why is the actual for 2024 for State Highway Fund at 1.9 billion and we dropped down for estimates from agency for 1.2 of $700 million difference? What can we attribute that to?
Kyle.
Can you repeat the question? I'm not entirely sure what numbers we're looking at.
Yep. So I'm actually not looking at any enhancements. I'm just looking at page 1 on the State Highway Fund under the financing. It says for actuals 2024, 1.9 billion, and then you go across. And when we go to 2026, their estimates are 1.2. What's attributable for that significant difference?
Mr. Chairman, the way that the Department of Transportation expenditures and financing work, when they start a project, they allot the entire expenditure for the whole project at that time, despite the fact that the project may run for multiple years. And in 2026, they are anticipating less large expenditure projects, so there's a substantial decrease compared to 2024 and fiscal year 2025 on their current expectations.
That's just where I was getting confused. I was wanting to make it the same as revenue, but it's not the same as revenue.
Correct.
President Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at the FTEs because that's always the thing we talk about. I know over 2 years they're looking at what 93 new FTE. And so can you help me understand like what's going on over there, like with shrinkage? And I mean, if we have 2,300 employees roughly or 2,300 FTE, what's the shrinkage rate in the Department of Transportation? And are these, every time I think I understand something, I look at something, I think maybe I don't fully understand it. If I've got a maintenance guy out there, that's an FTE that they're allowed, and he leaves and a new guy comes. Am I asking for a new FTE, or am I just filling one that I'm already authorized to have? So am I needing 93 new people over the next 2 years in the Department of Transportation?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, so the additions are primarily in areas where they're currently using contract workers, and they're trying to switch to more utilization of actual staffers.
And they're not currently authorized for enough FTE to make that transition? Is that what I'm understanding then? I mean, because they're authorized for X amount of FTE and shrinkage, they have some shrinkage, right, whatever that percentage is. I don't know, you wouldn't have to have a very big percentage to have 100 open spots. So am I adding 100 new spots in addition to that? Wouldn't I not already have the authorization to fill my current FTE?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there are currently only a handful of vacancies, but once I get back to my computer, I can check the more blown up document so I
That'd
can
be
see
fine,
the
yeah.
numbers better
Yeah, we don't need
and
to-
get back to you. But
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator Petty.
Thank you. Actually, my question follows that of the president. So I had noticed that in maintenance, they were asking for 53 positions, new positions, I believe. But when I look back on page 16, that shows an increase of 45 new positions. I'm just curious I can kind of see could you explain the reasoning for the new positions that they want within maintenance? You said that they want to, are they using contract within maintenance and they're trying to go to have a full staff across the state or what?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, so the addition of 53 is for fiscal year 2026, and fiscal year 2025, it's a request for 45. The maintenance staff is spread across the state, so they're trying to fill some of their needs in other areas of the state. And as I understand it, they are currently using some contract work for some of that maintenance.
And that's because they haven't had the internal staff to be able to take care of those maintenance needs statewide?
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions? Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me take another stab. This is kind of outside my bailiwick, but I might vaguely understand this. So we're talking about revenue. And so on this revenue, the state highway fund has went down 900 million. So I think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about projects. So is that, you do something different in transportation than I'm aware of?
With respect to the values on the first page tables,
Right. The highway fund has went down, it was 2.1 billion last year, and now it's 1.2 billion.
those numbers are related to the financing of the expenditures within the budget, not necessarily reflective of the amount that is coming into the state highway fund.
So why wouldn't it reflect your entire revenue, and then you would take that out of, the expenses out of that?
Can you rephrase your question? I'm not entirely sure what you're asking.
Why wouldn't that say the whole amount that you got into the state highway fund from your sales tax portion? And then you would subtract the projects and stuff out of that. That's maybe different how transportation does that then?
No, not necessarily, but the presentation within the table itself that you're looking at is not reflective of the entire revenues, just the amount within each of those funds that is being delegated to financing the expenditures for that fiscal year.
Okay, so this is not a total picture of the sales tax revenue then?
Correct.
Do you have that? And why would it drop anyway?
The reduction is associated with the reduction in the expenditures for projects that they are expecting for that year. So they are anticipating spending less on major projects in fiscal year 2026, reducing the amount of financing that needs to be delegated to those expenditures.
So that's financing, that's not revenue? I'm just.
Correct.
Okay. Maybe that's where I'm misunderstanding. I thought that would be the revenue that you would have been generating. I guess it does say financing here. I just looked at it being the revenue that was from the sales tax portion.
With respect to your question about the actual expected revenues within the sales tax, their projections for fiscal year 2025 are $720 million, and for 2026 are $746.6 million.
Okay.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I understand what this number is. I don't understand why they're projecting almost $1 billion less in projects for 26 from 25, when they told us in LBC that costs were already going up anyway.
Mr. Chairman, so as I tried to note to Representative Williams, when they start a project, they expend the entire portion of the project cost at that time, but those projects may extend over multiple years. So in some cases, they have projects that are ongoing from this year and fiscal year 2024 that are consuming some of their staffing for fiscal year 2026 and therefore not starting as many new projects in 2026 to create a further expenditure.
Okay, I'll let it go. I'm still not sure why why they're not, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, when they say that it's 30% more, I guess I would think that there'd be less projects maybe, but I would think it'd probably be about the same amount of money, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Any further questions in regards to 2025? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The State Highway Fund, for anyone who may not be aware, has not just sales tax dollars, but it has a myriad of fees, license fees, title fees. I mean, it's ridiculous to me how many, but that's the reason they have over $2 billion. I do have a question you may not be able to answer on page 5, number 8. They're asking for over $2 million to purchase land and right-of-ways needed in construction projects. My question is, and if you don't have an answer, the agency can answer it for us at another time. When KDOT purchases land or obtains a right-of-way for construction projects, once that construction project is completed, does the land revert back to the previous owner, or is KDOT just accumulating a lot of land that they become the owner of?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to check with the agency about the details of how that works. I know that for some of the land that they're purchasing, the roadway is actually expanding in width. So some of the purchases with respect to the land needed for those width expansions.
I understand that part, but sometimes there might be where they just need to obtain right-of-way or land for, I'm thinking of a building project, which is a great annoyance to me right now, just a few miles from my house. But in any event, my question stands. Is that something that, do they only purchase land when they're going to be utilizing it, or do they purchase it for construction projects and the right-of-ways? Once they've completed the construction project, Mr. Chairman, I guess I don't see any need for KDOT to continue the right-of-way or the acquisition of the land. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Something that caught my eye was 307 miles located on the grounds of state parks. This is on the agency overview. My question is, does KDOT actually go out and take care of those roads, or do they give the money to Wildlife and Parks to take care of those roads?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to clarify on the answer to that, but I believe in some cases they do have a transfer to Wildlife and Parks.
Senator Fagg.
Thank you. That's fine.
Any further questions in regard to fiscal year 2025? All right, seeing none, Kyle, please proceed to fiscal year 2026.
Beginning on page 8, the plot is shown in figure 5, and the request for fiscal year 2025 is a decrease from that of the fiscal year 2025 approved. The total request in the more detailed breakout in figure 6 is for $1.68 billion. This is a decrease of $881 million, or 34.4% from the fiscal year 2025 revised request, and $647.8 million decrease from the fiscal year 2025 approved, for a reduction of 27.8%. Moving to figure 7, they have no enhancement requests for line 1. And moving into other changes, this is a reduction of $647.8 million and an addition of 92.8 FTE positions. Line item number 2 for architects and engineers, as seen with fiscal year 2025. This is a request of $10.1 million for architects and engineers that they are currently utilizing contract workers for. Line item number 3 towards the top of page 9 is for building construction, and this is a request for $5 million, and this is primarily associated with the Topeka Surplus Property Warehouse and the Great Bend Construction Office. Line item number 4 in the middle of page 9 is regular maintenance salaries and wages as seen in fiscal year 2025. And again, this falls under the global FTE addition removal. But again, this is for additional statewide maintenance employees to cover various maintenance applications. Line item number 5 at the bottom of page 9 is, again, innovative technologies aid to locals of $2.5 million. And again, this is for parts of the Ike broadband service expansion and federal safety technology and mobility improvements. Line item number 6 towards the top of page 10 is a request for construction inspection salaries and wages. Again, this falls in the global FTE addition removal. And this request was for $1.7 million in 27 FTE positions. Again, these are technicians and engineers in the field that do inspections and oversight of construction as well as materials testing. Line item number 7 in the middle of page 10 is a request for $1.3 million in transportation planning and modal support aid to locals. This is a project that provides aid to local communities for federal safety requirements and public transit assistance programs. Line item number 8, towards the bottom of page 10, is a request for salaries and wages within the administration's program. This, again, falls in the global FTE addition removal, but the request was for $1.3 million in 8.8 FTE positions, and these were delegated for IT, accounting, and auditing purposes. Line item number 9 at the bottom of page 10, carrying on to the top of page 11, is for salaries and wages in the design and right-of-way program. Again, this falls in the global FTE addition removal, but this request was for $1.0 million, 9 FTE positions for field surveys, bridge inspections, geotechnical surveys, highway improvement designs, acquisitions, and related tasks. Line item number 10, towards the middle of page 11, is for salaries and wages within the Office of the Secretary. This also falls within the global FTE addition removal. The request is for $22,020 and 1.5 FTE positions, and these are positions that they are expecting for up-and-coming projects largely associated with research. Towards the middle of page 11, line item number 11 is operations support salaries and wages, a decrease of $296,594 and 6.5 FTE positions. And again, as within fiscal year 2025, these positions were moved from operations support to administration. Line item number 12 at the bottom of page 11 is again for construction, land, and interest in land. And this is a reduction of $2.8 million. Because of the reduction in projects for fiscal year 2026, they have a reduced need for land purchases in fiscal year 2026. Line item number 13 at the top of page 12, construction highway bridge contracts, is a decrease of $675.3 million, and this is a result of fewer bridge projects within the expansion, preservation, modernization, and local construction projects planned for fiscal year 2026. Line item number 14 at the bottom of page 12 is for all other adjustments of $3.6 million. This is largely associated with increases in debt service payments, contractual services related to programming and information systems, and this is partially offset by decreases to local sport and capital outlays. Any questions on fiscal year 2026?
All right, thank you, Kyle. So the first question that I have, and we had this discussion yesterday in regards to broadband development. And what was supplied to me by Charday when I asked the question about how much money has gone into broadband in the last few years, from 2021 to 2024, the funding from the Ike Transportation Plan has been $25 million. And so on number 5 on page 9, they're asking for $2.5 million from that fund for broadband. And is that coming from the Office of Broadband Development?
Mr. Chairman, I am not sure where the actual funds are, what office it works for, but the part of the Ike program includes broadband expansion across the state, and some of the projects in fiscal year 2026 are anticipated to increase the amount of broadband infrastructure spending.
So do we have any further transfers that are going to the Office of Broadband Development from the Ike Transportation Plan, or did it cease at fiscal year 2024?
Mr. Chairman, that I am not sure about. I can check with the agency, though.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking that is because when we created the Ike Transportation Plan, we did not anticipate or know that we were going to be receiving many dollars from the federal government in regards to broadband. And so you look at all the allocations that we have made over the last few years since 2020, and including the amount that we received from the federal government, we have nearly put in over $630 million into broadband. And so I am just inquiring to see if, because we did not know that was going to be happening when we created the Ike Transportation Plan, maybe we need to have legislation that ceases that because we have more than enough dollars in broadband development. Senator Billinger.
Yes, and I'd also like to mention that this all started out with, the Department of Transportation. If they've got trenching or stuff going on, we'd let them lay their lines in. Now all of a sudden we're throwing all kinds of dollars at this. So.
Representative Helgerson.
I assume that somebody is paying rights to use the state right-of-way, and there should be dollars coming in plus everything we've seen.
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to check with the agency of how all those rights-of-way usages work. I am not certain of whether they receive monies or not for that.
Representative Helgerson.
Well, as Senator Billinger said, we were initially told it was going to be a trench open, they could put the lines in. But this got to be such a mega business and so many federal dollars, I'm assuming somebody's paying the right-of-way when I see trenching on all the highways in order to do that. But that's never been discussed, in my memory.
Kyle.
Again, I would have to check with the agency. I'm not certain of the payments that somebody and royalties that may be being paid for rights-of-way usage, but that would seem logical.
Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kyle, my question is on page 12, number 13, regarding the decreased spending for bridges. Is there any insight? It says that I know that there's a great need for bridge reconstruction, having 5 bridges in my district that are now closed, pretty much cutting us off at the border from Missouri. And it's now impacting workforce and economics. And so I see that decrease in the bridge. So is the insight there, is the decrease due to the local match that's required, that perhaps we're not able to address some of those bridges because of the local match that's required? Do you have any insight into that?
Well, is that the fault of the state of Kansas or the state of Missouri?
I think there's plenty of blame to go all the way around, quite honestly, but it is seriously impacting us. It's cutting off my county from at the border.
Well, I just make
There's
that
5
comment
bridges closed, so.
Because once
so
you leave Kansas, you definitely tell when you're in Missouri when you hit the roads.
You most definitely can. So just some insight into why that is a decrease when there's a need.
All right, Kyle, can you answer Representative Curtis's question?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the difference here is related to the expenditure difference that I was talking to Representative Williams and Carter about. Since they have let a large number of projects on bridges that are going to take multiple years, they are not planning to start a large number of new bridge projects for fiscal year 2026.
Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I understand, then it's kind of the pipeline issue, like as projects are getting ready. So it's not necessarily that it's the decrease because of the need, and that we may then see some of that increase over time as the pipeline gets filled?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've mentioned several times that in the FTEs, one reason for increasing FTEs is because of our contract employees. I don't see a line item for contract employees. And the reason I say that is because in other agencies, when they say a contract employees, that's a separate budget item. Do we have a separate budget item for contract employees?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I can look up the amount that they are currently spending on contract employees for you, but I do not have that number broken out for me at this moment.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the Department of Transportation for fiscal year 2026? All right. Representative Carpenter.
So I hate to keep beating on this, but I would certainly like a report that shows the highway fund balances. I mean, not balances, but the income, the revenue for annually. You look through this whole thing and there's nothing in here about revenue. And that's kind of weird to me, but I don't operate in transportation field.
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I can get those numbers for you. I have the table here, but unless you want me to read out 45 items, I would guess that it would be easier to just look at.
One, I would say that would be something that could be supplied to the Transportation and Public Safety Budget Committee that Chairman Anderson heads. So we can have that information supplied to them, and then obviously we'll have that discussion later and during the legislative session. Any further questions in regards to 2026? All right, seeing none. Kyle, do you have anything else?
Would you like me to cover the capital budget portion?
Yes, please.
So if you turn to page 13, the capital budget for 2025, line item number 1 is for rehab and repairs. They're requesting $1.5 billion, and this is for maintaining various roadways and buildings across the state within the KDOT umbrella. Line item number 2 at the top of page 14 is for land and interest. This is a request for $36.7 million, and this is for purchase of lands and rights of way on land for roadways and construction projects. Some of this was previously encapsulated in the various construction land and interest requests from fiscal year 2025 that you already saw in the fiscal year 2025 budget. Line items 3 and 4 are debt service principal and interest. The request is for $106.1 million for principal and $71.3 million in interest. Fiscal year 2026, on the bottom of page 14, carrying on to the top of page 15, the first line item for rehab and repair is for $661.2 million in fiscal year 2026. Again, this is for various roadways and buildings within the KDOT umbrella. Towards the top of page 15, line item number 2 is land and land interest of $31.7 million. And again, this was encapsulated partially in the construction land and interest request in the fiscal year 2026 budget. Line items 3 and 4 are again debt service principal and interest. Towards the middle of page 15, the fiscal year 2026 request for principal is $109.4 million and interest of $75.9 million. If you then turn to page 16, the reference tables, the 10-year expenditure history of the department, you can see an increase in roughly 2020, and that carries on to another sizable increase in 2022 and beyond. The first increase is related to the beginning of the Ike project, and the next large increases are associated with the post-COVID inflationary impacts on the Ike project expenditures. Any further questions?
All right, committee, are there any further questions? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the principal and interest from 24 to 25, we're not making progress. We're paying significantly more in interest than we were. So apparently we're continuing to accumulate additional debt. Do you have, if not, we can get it later, how much total debt KDOT has for, well, just how much total debt KDOT has?
Kyle.
We're making bond payments on.
Sorry, Senator Peck.
Go ahead.
Kyle.
I don't believe I have those numbers in my binder with me, but I can look them up and get back to you.
Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kyle. Couple of questions. What is included in the administrative line item? The Office of the Secretary, Operations Support Program, what is all included in administration?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to look in my notes for what specifically falls within administration and get back to you, but I believe that it includes both the general administration and the Office of the Secretary at the very least.
Okay, and then my second question, Mr. Chair, is if I look at Figure 10 and Figure 11, from 24 to 25, we see a substantial increase in administration funds or expenditures, but a drop in FTE. In my experience, maybe this is different. Most of the cost for administration is in salaries and benefits. So why would we see a substantial increase in expenditures, but a substantial drop in FTEs at the same time?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to look back at the actual budget numbers to see where the actual increases versus the salaries and wages and other expenditures are to tell you for sure, but I can get back to you on that.
Kind of going off of Senator Erickson's question, the infrastructure hub, is that separate outside of the Department of Transportation? And the reason why I ask that is because when we set up the Build Kansas program, the majority of the intent of the money was supposed to go to transportation needs across the state, but there's like 5 other categories that it can go to as long as they're awarded the federal grant. However, the approval percentage of what's actually been approved by the federal government as to opposed to what we have had put into that fund over the last few years, we have a carryover. And so in fiscal year 2026, we're going to have a $50 million transfer into the Build Kansas program where we've been carrying over money from 24 and we'll be carrying money over from 25 because the percentage is lower than what was anticipated. The reason why I say that is because obviously given where the profile is at, since we have this carryover balance from the last few years, perhaps we halt the transfer of the $50 million in fiscal year 2026 because we have more than enough money to probably cover the projects if they are approved by the federal government. And if we wouldn't have that amount, we could make a stipulation that the State Finance Council can allocate the funds. But if we have a $50 million transfer that's just going to sit in that fund, that's not going to be utilized, I think it's better just to halt the transfer from when we initially set up the program back in 2022, 23. And because we have more than enough money in the fund that's going to cover the federal matching grant. And I know that's not exactly what Senator Erickson was asking about, but when you talked about the administration, I wondered how the infrastructure hub was falling into that, if it does. And because transportation is basically receiving the most of the money that the Build Kansas program is set up for, perhaps we halt the $50 million transfer in fiscal year 2026. Just a comment, you don't need an answer. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment, too. I'm not sure if all these agencies got together this year and said, hey, let's all build new buildings. Because if you look in here, they also are wanting a District 1 headquarters building for $23.8 million. So it seems like we're seeing a lot of new headquarter buildings wanting to be built this year. So,
Any further questions or comments in regards to fiscal 2026? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kyle, for your presentation. What type of debt does KDOT incur when we look at all this? Is this general obligation or is this revenue bonds?
Kyle.
Mr. Chairman, they primarily utilize revenue bonds.
When you say primarily, do they do anything other than revenue bonds?
Mr. Chairman, I would have to clarify. I believe they only use bonding.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend our staff for getting my answer really quick, just for the benefit of the committee. The outstanding KDOT debt is $1,294,660,000. So basically $1.3 billion is the outstanding principal for KDOT. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments? All right, see none. Thank you, Kyle. And now we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's going to be higher education. So I'd ask that Brianna Horton with the Kansas Legislative Research Department brief us. She's going to be doing all of the budgets for the universities, but she's going to start off with the Board of Regents. Brianna.
Good morning, committee. Brianna Horton with KLRD. I'm going to start off with the Board of Regents. Excuse me. On page 1, you see that overview table. That is just specifically for the Board of Regents. Towards the back of my budget summary, I have an overview of the whole system for all the universities. So this just reflects KBOR. The Kansas Board of Regents is comprised of 9 members appointed by the governor and subject to confirmation by the Senate. 1 member is to be from each congressional district, with the remaining members appointed at large. The Board of Regents is responsible for coordination of all post-secondary education in the state and supervising the operation of 6 state regents universities. I'm going to have us flip to page 2. Page 2, item number 1. The agency had $19.5 million in monies reappropriated from FY24 to FY 2025, and below in those bullet points are just those large reappropriations. So $8.6 million for the Kansas Promise Act, $2.8 million for tech ed tuition. If you flip to page 3, you'll see a continuation, $1.8 million for the computer science pre-service educator grant, $1.6 million for military service scholarships, and then $1.1 million for the state scholarship program. Excuse me. Item number 2, the Economic Development Initiatives Fund. The agency had $67,622. It spent an unspent EDIF money reappropriated from FY24 to FY 2025. This includes $40,594 for the EPSCoR program, $27,028 for the SEDIF Tech Innovation Internship Program. Item number 3 is the Educational Building Fund. The agency had $1.1 million in unspent EBF funds reappropriated from FY 2024 to FY 2025. If we move to item 4, we're going to get into those supplementals and enhancements. The agency requests $358,836 to reimburse colleges for courses delivered in 2024 to high school students in technical courses. The Board of Regents is statutorily required to maintain CTE incentive programs to a school district for each high school graduate who graduates from the district with an industry-recognized credential in a high-need occupation. The 2024 legislature appropriated $43.1 million in Excel CTE, plus an additional $2.8 million carry forward from prior years, bringing the total to $46 million. KBOR staff ran instructional cost models in the fall using certified enrollment numbers, raising the amount needed to be reimbursed by colleges, totaling $358,836. Item number 5. The agency requests $3,925 for state reimbursement payments for the Accelerating Opportunity Kansas AOK program. The AOK program is designed to help adult students complete career pathways and earn industry-recognized credentials. The board ran the instructional cost model using certified enrollment data, which totaled $3,925 more than the amount available. The agency is requesting these funds to fully reimburse colleges for courses delivered in FY 2024. Item number 6, the GED Accelerator. The agency requests $96,400 for GED Accelerator payments. The GED Accelerator initiative provides incentives for eligible institutions, community colleges, technical colleges, and Washburn Tech for adults seeking to earn a GED, high school equivalency diploma, or identified credentials while enrolled in an eligible post-secondary technical education program. The GED Accelerator was initially financed with a transfer of $1.9 million SGF in 2015. However, in 2017, $900,000 was transferred back to the state general fund, leaving $1 million in funding. Top of page 4. The remaining balance has been spent down and no funding is currently available. The requested funding will be used to pay incentives to colleges eligible to receive payments for this program activity. Item number 7, AOK course materials. The agency requests $8,567 for AOK course materials. The 2023 legislature passed Senate Sub HB 2600, which amended AOK work program to permit state funds to be used for books and related materials up to $500 per student. This legislation allowed funding to be used for students pursuing specific high school equivalency, but precluded AOK GED students from financial assistance. The 2024 legislature expanded the language to include all students in the 2024 SB 438, but did not include an appropriation for this change. Item number 8. The 2024 legislature appropriated $21.8 million to the State Finance Council to be expended upon certification that the Board of Regents distributed the Kansas Comprehensive Grant with 50% to the not-for-profit and 50% to the public universities. So this is just reinstating that $1.8 million SGF for the Washburn University. Item number 9, when we get into other changes, the agency revised estimate includes a decrease of $20 million SGF for state capital renewal. The 2024 legislature appropriated $20 million to the Kansas Board of Regents to distribute to the universities for state capital renewal initiative, which is dedicated to renewing state universities' facilities. So you will see a decrease here, and then you will see an increase in the universities' budgets when that funding was appropriated. That applies to the NIST playbook. The agency revised estimate includes $8.5 million SGF for the NIST playbook. The 2024 legislature appropriated $8.5 million SGF for the NISS playbook, which provides specific recommendations to each university to increase graduation and retention rates for all students. So again, you will see that pop up in each of the universities' budgets. Item number 11 is need-based aid. The 2024 legislature appropriated $2.5 million to the Kansas Board of Regents, if we flip to page 5, to distribute to the universities for need-based aid. K-Board transferred $2.3 million to the 7 universities for fiscal year 2025. Item number 5, the 2024 legislature appropriated $1.7 million SGF to the Kansas Board of Regents to distribute to the universities for IT infrastructure and cybersecurity. Item number 13, the HEROES Act Scholarship. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 1 million SGF for the HEROES Act Scholarship. The HEROES Act Scholarship provides an opportunity for eligible dependents and spouses of certain deceased and disabled public safety officers, military personnel, and prisoners of war to attend eligible Kansas post-secondary educational institutions without payment of tuition or required fees. So this decrease reflects funds being transferred to those students for those scholarships. Item number 14, the nursing faculty grant. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 1 million SGF for the nursing faculty supplies grant program. These grants help nursing faculty purchase lab supplies with the goal of improving program quality and access. The program hopes to address the growing nursing shortage in the state by providing needed resources to nursing education programs. The decrease reflects scholarships and funds being transferred out to those institutions. Item number 15, Educational Building Fund. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 54 million EBF. The 2024 legislature authorized K-Board to transfer funds from the Kansas Educational Building Fund, which is dedicated to deferred maintenance for mission-critical buildings at state universities to any institutions under its supervision. So you will see those also reflected in each of the university budgets. And number 16 is the additional FTE. The agency revised estimate includes 5 FTE. There are 3 new positions within the Kansas Blueprint for Literacy program, including a Director of Literacy Education, Senior Associate Director, and Communications Coordinator. The 2024 legislature appropriated 10 million SGF to the Kansas Board of Regents for the literacy program. There are 2 remaining FTE. One is the chief of staff, so there were some internal changes, and then I will correct, they are currently trying to fill that vacant position that is listed there on the bottom. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to read all other adjustments. The agency requests an addition of 1.1 million, including 191,777 SGF for other adjustments. Adjustments include funding for tuition waivers, the Kansas Adult Learner Grant Program, and the board programs offset by other funding and transfers for workforce development at Fort Hays and demolition at KSU, which we saw yesterday was put into their budget. And so with that, Mr. Chair, we'll stand for questions on FY 2025.
All right, thank you, Brianna. So going back to item number 8 for Washburn, I believe that's just a misprint on the first line where it says 21.8 million. Because in the agency it says add 1.8 million, but in the text it says 21.8.
So there was a global deletion for the entire appropriation, so that was just, we deleted that money, but the 1.8 is what Washburn will get restored.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the clarification. Committee, any questions for 2025? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so when we're looking at the other changes, and particularly let's start with number 11, need-based aid. It says, so is this the amount that is being distributed from the comprehensive grant?
Brianna.
Page 2, but it's also on page 5 and 4. So it says delete 2.3 million SGF for need-based aid transfers. So is that part of the comprehensive grant money that they use to distribute, or is this actually in addition to?
Brianna.
Chairman, so last year, the legislature adopted a GBA because the governor added that 2.5 million, but the condition was that that the Kansas Comprehensive Grant was split 50-50 contingent, so that money could go back to the universities as a part of their base budget.
So this was the GBA in addition to the comprehensive, and it's not, this is one of those one-time funds?
Correct.
Okay, so great, note to us, so that's a one-time request. And then also, when we look at things, for example, like the HEROES Act Scholarship, I'm assuming that that's a no-limit fund, that it totally depends on the number of applicants that qualify, and so they decreased their budget by $1 million because they paid that out, and then we look forward, they're estimating an increase of applicants. But when we look at this, there's no way for us, unless we have perfect memories, to know how much was previously paid out. So can you tell us how much for the HEROES Act Scholarship we generally spend annually, not just the ad?
Brianna.
There's some information in the back that I can get you, but I can also circle back and get you some information over the last few years about how much is for that scholarship.
Okay, and just a general kind of global comment, this might be something really helpful for any of these funds that we talk about over and over. We see the ads, but it'd be nice just in parentheses to see what the total amount is already being allocated. And then that just gives us a really quick context. Thank you.
Any other questions for 2025? Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On item number 4, Brianna, at the end of that summary, it says this request is intended to be recurring, but the funding is to reimburse the colleges for the courses already delivered. So is it saying that they expect in the future to be maybe off on the estimate, or at least the funding that is provided, and so they just want to carry that forward? Are they anticipating higher enrollment, or, because I know it's based off of a 3-year rolling average?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So my understanding is that when the board requests this and the legislator appropriates it, they're going back to take that enrollment data, and sometimes that increase is up by a couple, 300,000 or 100,000. So they're just getting that back pay so they can pay the colleges appropriately. Because when they run that cost model, that gives them a very accurate representation of how many students were enrolled in these programs.
Representative Howe.
Correct. So I understand that that needs to happen in order for them to be restored to the courses they delivered. But I guess when you say it's intended to be a recurring request, is this something that we anticipate in fiscal year 26 and in out years that they're going to be coming back and saying, we didn't appropriate enough because of enrollment's higher? Are they looking to have a higher ceiling for funding for if this happens in the future? Because I guess if enrollment is down, it's a 3-year average, so it's probably not going to go down too much, and the funding won't go down too much. But are they looking for additional ceiling, I guess, in funding?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I can't speak to if they're looking for an additional ceiling, but I can follow up with the agency to get some clarification on why this is a recurring request for them.
Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to 2025? Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Looking at number 16, the Blueprint for Literacy, that was one-time funding, correct?
That is my understanding.
Okay. So I just want to caution when we start adding FTEs based on one-time allocation that we don't come back and expect those to be funded beyond that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on number 5, how many community colleges and technical colleges do we have in the Board of Regents?
Mr. Chair, I believe that there's 19. I can get certain numbers on that, but I believe there's 19.
I think it's 19 community colleges and 7 technical schools.
I believe so. I can get
I thought we
clarification.
had 26. So it's a request for $3,900 to be divided between all of those. So that's $150 a piece. And it costs us more to write the checks and mail them than we are. And the Board of Regents gets $407 million from the state general fund. I just find that kind of weird. And 11's the same way. They're asking for $8,500 to be dispersed between the, so I hope they all make that out in one check. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments in regards to fiscal year 2025? All right, seeing none, Brianna, move on to fiscal year 2026.
Page 7. So I believe that you guys have a corresponding document from the Board of Regents. I'm not sure if you do, but that gives a better breakdown of all of the enhancements, because there's quite a few. So if you have that document, that's like a great supplement, so I will read through these. I tried to break them out through items that are specifically for the board, things that the universities are requesting, and then things that the two-year colleges and technical colleges are requesting, but these funds currently all go through the Board of Regents. If we turn to page 8, item number 1, student affordability. The Board of Regents requests 90.1 million SGF for K-Board student affordability. This funding would support the operation of the public universities and will be invested in ensuring the system of the universities and K-Board office can recruit and retain faculty and staff, provide a greater level of financial aid to Kansas residents, and to provide wider option of open educational resources, which is a course material provided at no cost to students. The funding will be allocated in those bullets below. 46 million for system-wide cost increases, 27.5 million for an SGF pay plan increase, 14.4 million for need-based aid, 1.8 million for market pay adjustments at Washburn, and then 200,000 for the OER, which are those open educational resources subscription. Item number 2, the Board of Regents requests 10 million SGF for IT infrastructure and cybersecurity to reduce the security and operating risks facing the institutions from legacy technologies. The funding will be devoted to efforts across all public institutions, including cybersecurity assessments and third-party penetration exercises. Item number 3, IT infrastructure for the two-year colleges. The Board of Regents requests 10 million SGF for continued investment in IT infrastructure at two-year colleges. The funding request is for security improvements that require additional resources to protect college networks from cyber criminals and ensuring campus operations. Item number 4, the NIST playbook. The Board of Regents requests 6.4 million SGF for the NIST academic playbook. The NIST playbook provides specific recommendations to each university to increase graduation and retention rates for all students. Item number 5, student success initiatives. The Board of Regents requests 11.7 million SGF for student success initiatives at two-year colleges. The initiatives will focus on training the Kansas workforce and ensuring completion of retention of students. Item number 6, the Washburn Science Lab. The Kansas Board of Regents requests 5 million SGF for Washburn Science Lab. Washburn University has adopted the K-Board General Framework, which requires students to take a science course lab component. The request would support the expansion of general laboratory space at Stouffer Hall. Item number 7, the Washburn Operating Grant. The Board of Regents requests 3.3 million SGF for an increase to the Washburn University Operating Grant. Historically, the municipal operating grant has received, that should say 14 million. The SGF request would bring the total to 17.6 million in FY 2026. This request will support the operations to implement new pathways and programs such as a cybersecurity program with an applied focus on healthcare and forensic investigation. Other initiatives include expanding the education program and increasing scholarship aid for students. Item number 8 is adult education enhancement. The Board of Regents requests 1 million SGF to increase the number of English language acquisition students served and expand integrated education and training efforts to help students get their high school equivalency and industry certification. Item number 9, HEROES Act scholarship. The Board of Regents requests 1.5 million SGF due to an increase of applications for the HEROES Act scholarship. In FY 2023, there were 113 new applicants. In FY 2024, 175 new applicants. And in FY 2025, 212 applicants in the first 7 weeks. We're going to move to page 10, item 10, the One Health enhancement. The Board of Regents requests 51 million for the One Health Kansas project. This is a joint initiative between WSU, KU, and K-State to create new companies, jobs, and train the next generation of scientists and healthcare professionals. The request will be used to establish a dedicated strategic research fund that will be used by the 3 research institutions to address health challenges. Below in that next paragraph kind of highlights what each of them will do. KU will focus on cancer and human health, K-State on animal, and then Wichita will focus on that digital transformation and the Wichita Biomedical Campus. Number 11 is the regional growth and development enhancement. The Board of Regents requests $21 million to strengthen educational, economic, and workforce outcomes for the 3 Kansas regionals. This request is on behalf of the 3 regional institutions, ESU, PSU, and Fort Hays State. The agency requests funding to maintain, sustain, and grow education and economic outcomes within the 3 distinct rural regions. The funding will allow the 3 institutions to collaboratively improve student access to education, grow the regional workforce, and address the identified health and educational priorities. The funding would be divided with Fort Hays State receiving $8 million, ESU receiving $6 million, and PSU receiving the remaining $6 million. Item number 12 is K-State 105. The Board of Regents requests $5 million SGF for K-State 105 initiative to focus on local care strategies, caregiver support, and access to digital health resources and behavioral health needs. This initiative engages communities and strengthens expertise across all 105 counties, fostering collaborations with state institutions, agencies, nonprofits, and community organizations. Item number 13, KSU Next Generation Initiative. The Board of Regents requests $7.5 million SGF to improve operations, recruit and retain faculty, and offer scholarships for rural students through the Next Generation Animal/Human Health Initiative. This funding will be used to advance animal health through enhanced facilities, greater research activity, and educational programs. Item number 14, KU School of Architecture. The Board of Regents requests $10 million SGF for the School of Architecture. The school is currently located in 7 locations across the campus and is in need of a studio, teaching office, and common space areas. The project would allow KU to admit more qualified applicants, create a space to house existing programs, and expand program options in a consolidated space. Item number 15, KU Medical Center Loan Program Expansion. The Board of Regents requests $8.6 million SGF to increase the number of available slots to medical students and expand the program to include medical specialists. The medical loan program provides a forgivable loan covering the medical student's tuition and a monthly stipend up to $2,000 per month. The service fulfillment is 1 year. The service fulfillment is on a year-for-year basis, and the loan is forgiven upon completion of service. Item number 16, WSU School of Dentistry. The Board of Regents requests $5 million SGF for WSU to conduct a feasibility study to determine the exact requirements and costs to establish an accredited dental school. The university currently has 2 dental hygiene programs and estimates it would cost $100 million to construct a facility. Item number 17, GED Accelerator. The Board of Regents requests $100,000 for the GED Accelerator. The Board of Regents administers post-secondary education performance-based incentives funds. This fund provides incentives to institutions for adults seeking and earning a GED or high school equivalency diploma and/or identified industry credential while enrolled in an eligible post-secondary technical education program. This program has historically been funded through an SGF transfer, which is now depleted, which we referred to in fiscal year 2025 for supplementals. Community college capital outlay. The Board of Regents requests $5 million SGF for community college capital outlay. This funding is for those community colleges who do not receive funding under current statute. Item number 19, pilot program. The Board of Regents requests $10.5 million SGF to launch a pilot program targeting skilled workforce education. The pilot program, called Hired, helps to support talent attraction and retention in high-demand, sustainable wage, and critical need occupations requiring less than a baccalaureate degree. Technical colleges would be eligible for a portion of funding based on their success in meeting certain criteria. Item number 20, Technical Colleges Operating Grant. The Board of Regents requests $21 million SGF for the Technical Colleges Operating Grant. That's incorrect. It is $10.5 million that they're requesting. For the Technical College Operating Grant to support facility improvements, equipment, and other program enhancements. Previous funding has expanded capacity in advanced manufacturing, HVAC, plumbing, welding, and early childhood education. Item number 21, the Kansas Campus Restoration. The Board of Regents requests $32.7 million from the Kansas Campus Restoration Fund. The 2024 legislature passed SB 552 called the Kansas Campus Restoration Act. The fund was created with the state treasury to transfer $32.7 million from the state general fund to the KCR fund. The Board of Regents distribute the funds according to the requirements outlined in the bill. The last transfer approved by the bill will be in FY 2031. Item 22, the agency revised estimate. So I think we're now getting into other changes. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of $17.5 million for student success initiatives at two-year colleges, focusing on training the Kansas workforce and ensuring completion of retention of students. So we'll see decreases from here on out primarily, so those payments that the legislature had made for the board are going and being expended to the colleges or to the students. Item 23, two-year college business apprenticeships. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 14.3 million SGF for the two-year college apprentice program. The 2024 legislature appropriated 14.3 million to be used for the development of registered apprenticeships, business and industry outreach, and the development of programming to meet the emerging needs of Kansas businesses. Item 24, IT and cybersecurity. The agency's revised estimate includes a decrease of 14 million SGF for IT infrastructure and cybersecurity. Of this amount, 7.5 million was allocated to the universities and 6.5 was for community and technical colleges. If we flip to page 13, item 25, the agency's revised estimate includes a decrease of 10 million SGF to expand existing programs for the Rural Family Physician Grant, to expand existing programs located in a county with a population between 40,000 and 60,000 designed to place rural family physicians in Kansas. Item 26, the agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 10.5 million SGF for the Technical Colleges Operating Grant. Item number 27, the agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 8.5 million SGF for the NIST Playbook. The NIST Playbook provides specific recommendations to each university to increase graduation and retention rate for all students. Item 28, the Board of Regents request includes an increase of 9 million all educational building fund. These funds are dedicated to deferred maintenance for mission critical buildings at the state universities. And then all other adjustments, the Board of Regents requests a decrease of 9.6 million for all other adjustments. The decreases are primarily due to decreases in categories of other assistance, such as decreased expenditures for the Osteopathic Service Scholarship, Workforce Development at Fort Hays, and the Manufacturing Training Center for Washburn, and ensuring student pathways and student success at Washburn, and other board programs and scholarships. These are largely funds that were intended to be one-time appropriations. In addition, the agency requests to maintain the additional FTE requested in FY 2025. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions on fiscal year 2026.
I bet you can't wait. All I have to say in regards to them as requests is Merry Christmas. And right now, I'm probably going to sound like the Grinch when I go through some of these items. The first that I have is in regards to the focus on student affordability. And obviously, with the global motion that was made last week, all of these enhancements are taken out and be reviewed by Chairman Howe and the respective committee on the Senate side in regards to these asks. But $27.5 million for a pay plan increase is included in that $90.1 million for the student affordability. Obviously, we're having the committee on January 8th in regards to the state employee compensation and pay plan. So I just wanted to make that comment in regards to that particular item. The next is in the Research Excellence Fund, One Health Kansas, for $51 million. And if you look at the testimony that's been supplied by the Board of Regents, this is not a one-time ask. This is for 10 years, correct?
Yes, Chair, that is my understanding.
So we're talking about not $51 million in fiscal year 2026. We're talking about a cumulative amount of $500 million going into this program.
It is my understanding that this is a recurring request.
The next is in regards to the strengthened regional outcomes for Kansas of $21 million. One, in the documentation that you have here from research, it had that Pittsburgh and Emporia were receiving $6 million, and Fort Hays State University was receiving $8 million. By my calculation, that's $20 million. Where's the remaining $1 million?
Mr. Chair, I'll get back to you and get some clarification on what those numbers are exactly.
Okay, and I guess, and I think Chairman Howell probably have this discussion, and then the Senate will have it as well, but what is the intent of this $7 million or $21 million being split over the 3 regionals? And how long are we going to be appropriating this money? Well, we already discovered that the $51 million is going to be for 10 years. How long are we going to be asked to supply this amount of money for the regionals?
Mr. Chair, to answer one of your questions, the intent is for the regional development fund is to bring them on par with the other research universities so that they have somewhat the same level of funding, obviously not because the research universities have more, but just to bring them on par with the big 3. I will have to circle back and see how long this funding would be requested for.
And do we have outcomes from the money that was allocated last year?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any, but I'm sure the university would be happy to provide any outcomes.
Thank you. The next is the School of Architecture building. This is basically not building a new building, it's renovations or additions.
Mr. Chair, I will have to dig a little deeper. I know that they want to get them into one location because they're not currently all in one location. I will clarify if I can look through my things if they're building a new building.
And I mean, do we know if KU has pursued any donors for this building or to make the renovations?
I am unclear. If you would like, I can have Kelly Witten come speak on behalf of that.
I can ask Kelly outside. I'm just wondering, I mean, to make renovations to a building, I mean, you could probably find the donors to do that instead of asking for state general fund dollars. The next question I have is $5 million for a feasibility study in establishing a school of dentistry. That would cost $5 million for a study. And the building itself would be in excess of $100 million.
Mr. Chair, that is my understanding with the information.
I'm just posing the question, so don't, like I said, I'm going to be the Grinch here for a little bit. Let's see, what else did I have marked? Now, in regards to some of the items for cybersecurity, is that going to be ongoing? Or can that be taken care of in 1 year and then maybe in a couple of years we look at it again? But we want to allocate, was it $10 million for the higher ed institutions and then also for the 2-year colleges?
Mr. Chair, it is my understanding that this request will be recurring.
All right. Let's see what else. So I guess the last item that I have that I believe I had marked, and this is on the testimony. It was not in the document that was supplied by the research department, but I served on the wildfire task force. And in the Board of Regents, there is a line item here for the Kansas Forest Service to adopt the 2023 Governor's Wildfire Task Force recommendations. What is that?
Mr. Chair, I don't have that information in front of me, but there is a description of what that task force is and what the request was, but I don't have that with me at this moment.
Well, and I would say I'm kind of perplexed that this is included in the Board of Regents testimony here, because that, one, there was no recommendation made to the legislature until now. And this is only a portion of it, a small portion of it. And actually, if it is what occurred during a meeting that actually I was absent from, because I was in a meeting in regards to budget and taxes in New Orleans with Chairman Billinger, and this vote happened, and actually we negated that vote when we had the recommendations to the legislature, and that was a $3.1 million increase for the Kansas Forestry Service, where they receive currently $650,000. And they wanted an additional 3.1 million and 26 additional FTEs. And I mean, I have the document here from the task force when we had that administered to us on exactly what the breakdown was going to be. And when I attended the next meeting, and when we actually discussed the recommendations from that task force, I made it poignantly clear that everything should fall under the Adjutant General, not the Kansas Forestry Service. And the reason being is because the Kansas Forestry Service does not have their own separate budget. They are embedded within the Kansas State University, where the Adjutant General has their own budget where we can monitor what's going to be going on with the money that is allocated to them. Whereas, and I'm not saying anything, negatively about K-State, but when you have a budget that's embedded inside another budget, the dollars can move and swift around. And so I'm perplexed as to why this is on the Board of Regents' request. And I will say I will make any effort to make it not happen. Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You did hit on some of the items I wanted to ask about. I'll get a few of them out of the way. Item 16 about the feasibility study for the School of Dentistry. I think last year we did a feasibility study for K-State, the Animal Diagnostic Lab, and that was only $250,000. So I did notice the same thing the chairman did, that it's quite a increase for a feasibility study. So that's more of a comment. K-State 105, according to the description that's listed in the summary document, it does appear that maybe they're shifting focus on what they originally set out to do, which was kind of entrepreneurship, trying to help support small business across the state. Is that your understanding, that they're shifting focus?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, Representative, no, I'm just taking a comprehensive overview when I'm reading through these things, but the focus for this project has stayed the same. It has not changed to my understanding.
So can I extend off of Chairman Howe's question in regards to K-State 105? I mean, the premise when it first started was based off of basically economic development, correct?
Correct, my understanding.
And now we have allocated funding for regional institutions with the aspect of economic development. Are we overlapping? You don't have to answer that question. All right, Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, the K-Board's employee pay plan for the state universities, are they wanting that money, do you know, to do an across-the-board increase for all staff, faculty, or do they want additional money so they can do something more on a merit-based situation? For example, if they have a high-demand position, that they want to retain that person, they can give them additional dollars based on merit and things like that. Do you know if they've given you any information about how they would plan to execute that?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any clarification on those certain criteria for this pay plan, but I'd be happy to get that from Board of Regents.
Okay, thank you, Brianna. That'd be helpful. I asked, maybe it was yesterday, when K-State University was before us, without enhancements, how much does each institution in higher ed spend on cybersecurity? So I'm kind of wanting to know what is their baseline? What is their investment back into their institution on their base operating budget for cybersecurity? So if you had any information, could get that from each institution, that would be helpful.
I will work with the Board of Regents and Universities to get that information.
All right. Any other questions? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your comments. I will remember always being on the Education Budget Committee when these type of requests were made. I called them ridiculous, and I was heavily criticized for that. You didn't use that word, but I will again. However, I do have a question. We see all these requests for additional taxpayer money, frequently called enhancements. However, then we get a couple bones thrown to us that I don't necessarily agree with. Number 22 and number 23, these both are decreases in money for two-year colleges. One is for student success initiatives, the other is for business apprenticeships. Were you told, or do you have the understanding that the reason for the decrease request is because these programs are being underutilized? Or why would Board of Regents decide to throw the two-year colleges out?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, so this decrease reflects the payment. So the legislature appropriated this to the Board of Regents, and so this decrease reflects those payments being paid out to the community colleges or for those programs. So this is just that payment going to those institutions in those programs.
So it's not they're not saying give us less money. They're saying that we're going to have less money because we're giving it to the two-year colleges.
So it's actually reflecting the disbursement to the community colleges.
Correct.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then I'm having trouble following the 19, 20, and 26 and how they all fit together as it relates to the technical colleges operating grant. And can you help me? Can you put all that together, if you will, maybe a little bit on, to me, it looks like 19, 20, and 26 sort of are all related.
Mr. Chair, so item 19, hired, is a pilot program. So the technical colleges have requested to implement this pilot program, so that's that 10.5 million. Item number 20, 10.5 million is for the technical colleges operating grant. So the legislature has funded this grant previously to help keep them with operations for HVAC programs, et cetera. And then item 26 is that reduction from the previous year. So they requested it last year. That money went to the Board of Regents. This negative is just showing that the Board of Regents has expended that and has given that to the technical colleges. So one is a request, and then one is it being previously expended.
Okay, I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, I follow all of that, but I will not ask additional questions. But I want to say it out loud, as I have in the past, that I believe our two-year colleges, our community colleges, are the best value for the education dollar in our state. If you compare K-12 community colleges and regents, again, I believe that the community colleges are the best value that we have for the education dollar for Kansas students. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would note on that, that's probably because of the taxpayers in those counties that are giving that great value of $280 million. Okay, my question before I ask, I'm going to do a little context here. So if we're on page 16, the reference table, the 10-year expenditures, and pre-pandemic, and post-pandemic, except for 1 year, we have beat the rate of inflation, the CPI-U index, significantly. And in fact, if you look at it, it's stunning. It's 207.2% increase over about a decade, a little over a decade. And the rate of CPI-U change is 33.4, and that's just state general fund. So my question is, in that time span, what's the percent change of enrollment? I think we're probably making a recovery since pandemic, but in terms of the total number of students attending are across the system, what's the difference between 2018 to now? Do we know that?
Brianna?
Mr. Chair, I do not, but I can get back to my computer and pull up that information.
Okay. And then the second thing would be nice to know is how much, looking at the total number of students in the system by their credits, are they full-time? How much are we spending per pupil in this time span? And let's kind of look at that, and with the tuition and fees included and with the tuition and fees not included over this time span. And then again, I'm amazed because even at one of the line items in, or one of the figure 10, expenditures by program, just to piggyback off of the comments, I'm absolutely stunned. Post-secondary education institutions actuals in 2024 was 281 million. And what's being asked is 493, just in that one category. That's a 75% increase. And if we're going to cut the budget, or if we're going to stay within 1% to 2%, that eats it all up right there. So I'm concerned. Thank you.
Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we know if any of our two-year colleges are using the cybersecurity services that are being offered at no cost through CISA, federal government?
Brianna?
I would have to follow up for that information.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Senator? Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back on number 19 on page 11, maybe I'm having a deja vu moment, but it just seems to me like we saw a program that just fits this description last year. So if anybody could refresh my memory, and I don't know if maybe it was like an enhancement perhaps that might have come through the commerce budget, but it just sounds like, okay, it sounds almost like identical. So my question is this a duplication? Have we funded something very similar to this perhaps last year?
Brianna.
Chairman, Representative, I believe the program you might be referring to is there's that 14.3 million for apprenticeships for two-year colleges. This is the 10.5 for a pilot program, which they were going to test out to see if they meet certain criteria, excuse me, for technical colleges.
It's a little bit different. Thank you.
Representative Helgerson.
We have started expanding, enrolling students in high school into the college, or giving them credit for certain programs if they take classes in high school. I'm assuming that we're paying for the student, the state, is paying for the high school education, and that the universities are charging for getting them credit, the high school students to the college credit. Has that been discussed? And if so, how much double dipping is going on?
Brianna.
Chairman, Representative, can you clarify what you're wanting to know?
In high school takes an advanced class. They're taking it in high school, but they're given college credit. The college credit is charged to the university and is charged to us, I believe, and that the high school is also being paid for the student. So the state is paying for the same class twice. Has that been calculated?
Brianna.
That has been calculated. I can get that information from the board.
Thank you.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On number 29, I understand that there was money that was supposed to go to the orthopedic service scholarship last year. Did that money get to that scholarship? The funds, were they transferred to the scholarship?
Brianna.
Yes, Chairman, Senator, they were.
They were, and so this just cuts that for next year. Is that what this does?
Chairman, that that item below all their adjustments just kind of is a comprehensive overview of other things that I didn't discuss. So it's not cutting the money. It's just saying that that was part of the things that I didn't highlight, but that money was given to that scholarship specifically.
So on the table that we have from the Board of Regents, it's the very last item in regards to their appropriation requests. And it says continue state support of the osteopathic service scholarship, and it says forward to the governor.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to talk in circles. So that payment was made in FY 2025. There was a request for that again, and I do not believe that the board approved that request in their budget. So I believe that that was passed along to the governor.
Oh, okay. Senator Alley.
So thank you, sir. One more clarification. So is that money for those scholarships, is that included in this 26 budget then?
Brianna.
It is not.
It is not. Okay.
Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll see your Grinch and raise you to a Scrooge. I can't wait to get hold of this as Chair of Education on the Senate side. But my question to you is, I take it that the Board of Regents voted to approve these enhancement requests. Is that a vote that we could see who voted for what?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I believe the board meetings is streamed online, and I can try and figure out what date and time that is, and you guys can see what they voted on and what items were presented.
I would like to know that vote. Thank you.
Any further questions in regards to 2026? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, does the Board of Regents fill out a comprehensive grant form, or not a comprehensive grant, but a performance budget?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, yes, the Board of Regents does submit a PBB, and I can get a copy of that for you guys if you like.
I'd like one. Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to the requests of fiscal year 2026? All right, seeing none. Brianna, we'll go ahead and move on to the universities themselves. And so the first one you have is the Emporia State University. Brianna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 1 is that overview table for Emporia State and a little bit of history on the university. If we move to page 2, excuse me, item 1, SGF reappropriation. The agency approved amount includes $3.6 million in unspent SGF monies reappropriated from FY 2024 to FY 2025 for multiple programs, including the cybersecurity academic program, $817,000, demolition fund, $2.3 million, state capital renewal, $89,000, Smart Kansas 21, $307,000, and the National Board for Certified Teachers of Kansas, $32,000. Item number 2, the Educational Building Fund reappropriation. The agency had $3.6 million in EBF monies reappropriated from FY 24 to FY 2025. EBF monies are dedicated to deferred maintenance for mission-critical buildings at state universities. Item number 3, there are no supplemental requests. All of those requests are in the Board of Regents budget. Item number 4 is the operating adjustment. The 2024 legislature appropriated funds for the Board of Regents Student Success Playbook and the cybersecurity to be distributed to each university. ESU received $144,207 SGF for cybersecurity and $1 million SGF for the NIST Playbook. Item number 5 is the diversity, equity, inclusion adjustment. The 2024 legislature deleted $35.7 million SGF in operating expenditures from the 9 agencies. ESU had $1.9 million restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025. Item number 6, student financial aid. The 2024 legislature appropriated $21.8 million to the State Finance Council to be expended upon certification that the Board of Regents split the Kansas Comprehensive Grant 50-50. The agency requests $1.2 million SGF of this funding in FY 2025. Item number 7, need-based aid. The 2024 legislature appropriated $2.5 million SGF to the Kansas Board of Regents to distribute to universities for need-based aid. ESU was awarded $140,917 of these funds for need-based aid. If we turn to page 4, item 8, the 2024 legislature appropriated 20 million SGF for the Kansas Board of Regents to distribute to the universities for state capital renewal initiative. ESU was awarded 1.2 million of these funds in FY 2025. Item number 9, capital projects. The agency revised estimate for FY 2025 includes a decrease of 12.4 million in restricted fee funds. These funds are expended on capital projects including Welch Stadium, soccer turf project, and the new nursing wellness center. Item number 10, deferred maintenance support. The agency revised estimate includes 1.4 million for deferred maintenance from the deferred maintenance support fund for deferred maintenance projects. These projects include building re-roofing, beach music hall structure improvements, storm drain replacements, and steam tunnel repairs. Item 11, the nursing and student wellness center. The agency revised estimate includes an increase of 3.6 million, all federal ARPA funds, to construct a new nursing and wellness center. The plan for this building is to demolish Morris Central and construct a new building in that location. This moves the Department of Nursing from a leased off-campus facility and onto the main campus. The plan includes moving the student wellness center into the facility. The project is projected to be complete fall of 2025. Item number 12, general fee fund, which is tuition. The agency revised estimate includes an increase of 4.7 from the general fee fund, which receives tuition deposits. Projected revenue into the fund was increased based upon updated tuition data, as well as increases due to the daily interest balance. The original estimate on the account was 20 million, and the revised estimate is 24 million, so that accounts for that increase. Item number 13, student union debt. The 2024 legislature appropriated 8.1 million SGF to pay off debt for the Memorial Union. The payment of this debt had previously been financed through a fee of $125.12 per semester for a full-time on-campus student. The university is no longer charging the fee, and so this is reflected as a decrease in that account. Item 14, Educational Building Fund. The 2024 legislature authorized K-Board to transfer funds to the Kansas Educational Building Fund, which is dedicated to deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance for the mission-critical buildings of state universities. ESU received a transfer of 3.7 million for deferred maintenance projects. These projects include the East Chiller Energy Conservation projects and the Nursing Department and Wellness Center. The initial plan was submitted by the Board of Regents for the nursing department, included a renovation of the building. However, ESU submitted a revised plan to demolish the building and create an ideal space for learning. Item 15 is their all other adjustments. The agency request includes an increase of 1 million, all from special revenue funds. The increase is primarily due to increased spending in salaries and wages and employer contributions to group health insurance and computer software rental in the academic support program. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on FY 2025.
Questions? Representative Howell.
Thanks, Chairman. I had a question. I guess it's a little bit more policy-based rather than budgetary, but could you or maybe the revisor's office could provide us with where in state statute that we give authority for students to, I guess, incur fees and things like that? I'd just be kind of curious to learn a little bit more about the history on that. So, thank you.
Senator Fack, no question. Any other questions in regards to 2025? All right, Senator Carlin, or Representative Carlin.
No, thank you. Yeah, I noticed that I'm sure we'll see it on all the budgets, but the DEI money that was withheld from the universities, can you give us an overview of how much of that has been restored, and did anybody not get their money back? It's 35.7 million that was withheld. Can you give me a little more information on that, please? Thank you.
Brianna, but I think you touched on that yesterday when we had K-States, and that has been restored by the State Finance Council.
Correct.
Yeah.
For all,
for all,
one.
yes.
I just wasn't sure. Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to 2025? All right, seeing none, Brianna, please proceed with 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 6, item 1. So there are no enhancement requests in the university budget. Item number 2 is the diversity, equity, inclusion adjustment. ESU had $2 million restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that is carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. If we move to page 7, item 3, the 2024 legislature deleted $21.8 million from the 9 agency budgets to restore the Kansas Comprehensive Grant. ESU had $1.2 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY25, and that carried over into FY26 as a part of the agency's budget. Item 4, the student union debt. The 2024 legislature appropriated $8.1 million to pay off the debt for the student union and eliminate the fee. This was a one-time appropriation in FY 2025 and is reflected in the university's FY 2020 budget request. So there's that deletion because that fund was expended. Item 5, the Emporia State Investment Model. The 2024 legislature appropriated $9 million SGF for the Emporia State Investment Model. This was a one-time appropriation in FY25 and is not reflected in the university's budget for FY 2026. Capital projects. The agency request includes a decrease of $5.6 million, all from the restricted fee funds for capital projects. These projects include expenses for the new nursing and wellness center, energy saving projects, soccer and baseball outfield projects. Anticipated expenditures decreased as the nursing wellness center and the energy saving projects near completion. Item 7, the agency request includes $1.4 million, all from the deferred maintenance support fund for deferred maintenance projects, including HVAC maintenance. Item 8, the agency request for FY 2026 includes a decrease of $988,013. The 2024 legislature appropriated $8.1 million to pay off the debt for the union, which was previously financed through a $125.12 fee. The university is no longer charging students the fee, which reflects the decrease in the student union fund. All other adjustments, the agency request an increase of $658,540, including $387,536 SGF for all other adjustments. The increase is primarily due to an increase in contractual services and salaries and wages. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions on fiscal year 2026.
All right, committee, are there any questions in regards to fiscal year 2026? Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification. It's my understanding, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that Emporia State's tuition actually went down. Can you confirm that's correct from year to year?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I would like to check that before I confirm if that is correct.
Thank you, Brianna. And if you could supply that answer to the committee, I think that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to fiscal year 2026? All right, seeing none, Brianna?
I'm going to turn to page 9 for the capital budget. So for fiscal year 2025, the agency submits a revised estimate of $35.4 million in capital improvement expenditures, including 9.3 SGF. Item number 1. So primarily the capital budget for them is building, rehab, and repair. The agency requests $31.4 million in total for rehab and repair, including $9.2 million SGF. These projects include, but are not limited to, HVAC repairs, roof repairs, elevator improvements, and plumbing repairs. This includes the East Chiller project and energy conservation project, which focuses on centralizing chilled water production, upgrading HVAC controls, and upgrading non-LED lights campus-wide. This project will reduce energy consumption, lower the carbon footprint, and remove the remaining R2 refrigerant on campus. Other major projects to note include the re-roofing of King Hall Theater and the repair foundation for Beach Music Hall. And then for FY 2026, continuing those building, rehab, and repair, the agency requests $17.8 million for rehab and repair, including but not limited to electrical repairs, upgraded fire alarm systems, storage facilities, Plum Hall garden level renovation, sidewalk improvements, and corridor improvements at various buildings. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for any questions on capital budget.
All right, committee, any questions for Brianna? All right, seeing none, you can move on to Fort Hays State University.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 1 is the overview for Fort Hays State and a little background about the university. If we move to page 2, item 1, SGF reappropriations, the agency had $133,462 in unspent SGF monies reappropriated from FY24 to FY 2025. This was all for state capital renewal. If we move on to page 3, item 2, Educational Building Fund, the agency had $1 million in EBF monies reappropriated from FY 2024 to FY 2025 for those deferred maintenance projects. Item 3 is supplemental requests. There are no supplemental requests for the Fort Hays State in their current budget. Item number 4 is the operating adjustment. The 2024 legislature appropriated funds for the Board of Regents for multiple programs to each university, $210,771 SGF for cybersecurity and $1 million SGF for the NIST playbook. Item number 5 is the diversity, equity, inclusion adjustment. Fort Hays had $2 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025. Item number 6 is state capital renewal. Fort Hays was awarded $1.5 million of these funds, which are intended to be used to complete the renovation of Forsyth Library for state capital renewal in FY 2025. Need-based aids for students. The 2024 legislature appropriated $21.8 million to the State Finance Council for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant to be split 50-50. The agency request includes $3.5 million for this funding in FY 2025. If we move to page 4, item 8, the 2024 legislature appropriated $2.5 million to the Kansas Board of Regents to distribute for need-based aid. Fort Hays State was awarded $405,969 of these funds. Item number 9, the 2024 legislature approved $750,000 for the Fort Hays State Professional Development Workforce Program, which provides professional continuing and workforce development education that awards alternative credentials. So this item was originally in KBOR's budget, and then you see this increase here because it was given to Fort Hays State University. Item 10, Educational Building Fund. The 2024 legislature authorized KBOR to transfer funds from the Kansas Educational Building Fund. Fort Hays State received a transfer of $4.7 million for deferred maintenance projects. Item 11, the agency request includes a deletion of $3.4 million, all from special revenue funds in FY 2025. This is largely due to decreased expenditures in capital outlay, includes office supplies and equipment and contractual services for the research program. Item number 12 is an FTE adjustment. The agency FY 2025 request includes an increase of 6 new FTE positions within the public service program. These positions were added to fulfill program outcomes for the professional workforce development initiative, which had that $750,000. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions on FY 2025.
So on some of these items, kind of going back to the question that was posed, or maybe it was just maybe a comment that Representative Hoffman made yesterday. On some of these items, we're adding dollars, and it's going from the Board of Regents to the institutions. But have they been utilized? Have these funds been used by the institutions? Because it's saying we're adding $405,000 for need-based aid, $750,000 for professional workforce development, $4.7 million for deferred maintenance. Have they been utilized?
Mr. Chair, for the deferred maintenance, I think those projects are ongoing. The need-based aid, I believe, is being used. For the professional development program, I would have to get back in with the agency and see if that's been expended currently.
Thank you. Any questions in regards to 2025 for Fort Hays State University? All right, seeing none, we may move on to 2026.
Page 5, item 1, there are no enhancements for Fort Hays in their current budget. Item 2 is the workforce development. The 2024 legislature approved $15 million in one-time funding for the Western Kansas nursing workforce development capital improvements to renovate and add 2-story expansion to Stroop Hall, which houses the nursing department. These funds were spent in 25, and that reflects the decrease of $15 million for FY 2026. Item number 3, the diversity, equity, and inclusion adjustment. Fort Hays had $2 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that carried over into their FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. Item 4, the 2024 legislature appropriated $750,000 SGF for the Fort Hays Professional Development Workforce Program, which provides professional and continuing workforce development education and that awards alternative credentials. The appropriation was made in FY 25 and FY 2026. Item 5, the 2024 legislature deleted $21.8 million for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant to be split 50-50. Fort Hays State had $3.5 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025 and carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. Item number 6, capital improvements. The agency request for FY 2026 includes a decrease of $9.6 million for renovations at Forsyth Library. Item 7, all other adjustments. The agency requests a deletion of $205,821, including a deletion of $282,803 SGF for other adjustments in FY 2026. The decrease is largely due to anticipated decrease in expenditures on data computer services and software, partially offset by increased expenditures in salaries and wages and employee group health benefits. Item 8 is just a carryover from fiscal year 25. The agency requests to maintain the increased 6.0 FTE for the professional workforce development program in FY 2026. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions on fiscal year 2026.
All right, committee, any questions in regards to fiscal year 2026? Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brianna, on item number 2, talking about the Western Kansas Nursing Workforce Development, the capital renewal projects, do you know if Stroop Hall is complete? Because it does say those funds were expended already. I didn't know if the project was completed.
Brianna.
I will get clarification on the university on that project.
Any other questions about Fort Hays State University? All right, seeing none, Brianna, may proceed.
Page number 8 are the capital improvements. The agency submits a revised estimate of $40.8 million in capital improvement expenditures in FY 2025, including $16.6 million SGF. Item number 1, the Forsyth Library renovation. The agency requests $10.7 million for the complete renovation of the Forsyth Library constructed in 1967. The plan includes renovations of all 3 levels and a complete replacement of the main entrance to the buildings. Item number 2, the agency requests $7 million to replace existing HVAC equipment to the bowl area of the Gross Coliseum. This includes installation of air conditioning and a 500-ton chiller. Item number 3, the agency requests $1.7 million for a 1,900 square foot facility to existing indoor training facility. This 2-story structure will house football, locker rooms, showers, training room, and meeting rooms. Item number 4, Stroop Hall addition. The agency requests $15 million for the Stroop Hall addition. The project expands Stroop Hall, which is home for the nursing department at Fort Hays State. This expansion will make the space for additional classrooms, labs, and office space. The expansion will also include space for the allied health and neuromuscular wellness program. Item 5, parking maintenance. The agency requests $200,000 to replace 23-year-old asphalt that currently has significant cracking. The request includes plans to complete removal of all paving that hold 895 parking spaces and replacing it with a new concrete paving. This will provide an additional 110 parking spaces. And lastly, item number 6, the agency requests $3.8 million for multiple rehab and repair projects, including but not limited to roof repairs, heat pump replacements, and lighting. For fiscal year 2026, the agency requests $11.7 million, all from special revenue funds. Item number 1 for Forsyth Library, $9.1 million. Item number 2, parking facility, $200,000 to replace the 23-year-old asphalt. And then item number 3, $400,000 for multiple rehab and repair projects. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for any questions on capital budget.
All right, committee, any questions? Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the Forsyth Library renovation, was that the federal dollars that was for that project?
I believe it was mentioned earlier that it was federal dollars for Forsyth.
I will clarify and make sure that that is correct.
Okay. Reason I ask is I was on campus, I think this fall, just a couple months ago, and it was under construction already, so I wasn't sure if it was done in phases, like we've already appropriated a certain amount of dollars in the previous fiscal year, and now we're doing the second half of that. So if you could clarify that, I'd appreciate it.
Any other questions for Brianna? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Pittsburgh State University. Brianna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 1 gives an overview. That bottom part gives an overview history of the university. If we turn to page 2, item 1, SGF reappropriation, the agency had $7.5 million in unspent SGF money reappropriated from FY 2024 into 2025. The reappropriated funds were for the NEMA prove-out facility, 3.7, state capital renewal, 1.9, and student financial aid, 335,360, and demolition buildings, 1.5 million. Page 3, item 2, the agency had $8.4 million in EBF monies reappropriated from FY 2024 to FY 2025. That funding is dedicated to deferred maintenance. Item 3, there are no supplemental requests. Item 4 is the operating adjustment. PSU received $1 million SGF for the NIST playbook and $152,788 for IT and cybersecurity. Item 5, DEI adjustments. PSU had $2.3 million restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025. Item number 6, state capital renewal. PSU was awarded $1.5 million of these funds for state capital renewal projects. Item number 7, student financial aid. The 2024 legislature appropriated funding, required the Board of Regents to split the funding 50-50. The agency request includes $1.8 million SGF for student financial aid to be restored. Item number 8, and on to page 4, is need-based aid. The 2024 legislature appropriated $2.5 million to the Kansas Board of Regents. PSU was awarded $208,748 of these funds for needs-based aid and recruitment. Item number 9, the agency requests $3.1 million, all from federal opera funds, for the Block 22 Guerrilla Rising project, which will be the new home of the Kelsey College of Business. $2.5 million, public broadcasting infrastructure at the KRPPS radio station, $537,000, and KBOR for IT security, $85,684. The increase in funding for Block Guerrilla Rising and KRPPS is due to increased grant fundings from the Department of Commerce. Item number 10, the Educational Building Fund. The 2024 legislature authorized KBOR to transfer funds to the Kansas Educational Building Fund. PSU received a transfer of $4.6 million for deferred maintenance projects such as the Yates Science Lab renovations, the Axe Library Student Success Center expansion, White's Hall selected demolition, and the Recreation Center roof recovered. Item number 11, PSU grants and scholarships. The agency requests $2.9 million for the new Great Gorilla Scholarship Program and additional supplemental student grants. Item 12, deferred maintenance projects. The agency requests $5.7 million for deferred maintenance projects at the university, including Yates Science Lab renovations, Axe Library Student Success Center expansion, White's Hall selected demolition, and the recreation of the center roof recover. And item 13, an FTE adjustment. There is an increase of 12.7 FTE in FY 2025. This includes 8 academic advisors, and the remaining FTE are research scientists for the Center for Emerging Technologies. The 8 academic advisor positions are funded through the NIST playbook and partial funding from the Regional Stabilization Fund. Item number 14, the agency revised estimate includes $1.7 million, all from special revenue funds. The increase is primarily attributable to capital outlay such as items for office equipment. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on FY25.
All right, thank you, Brianna. Are there any questions in regards to fiscal year 2025? Seeing none, move on to 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we turn to page 6, item 1, there are no enhancement requests. Item 2 is the restoration of the Kansas Comprehensive Grant. PSU had 1.8 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council, which is carried over into FY26 as a part of their base budget. Item number 3 is the DEI adjustment. PSU had 2.3 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that is carried over as a part of their base budget in FY 2026. Item number 4 is the American Center for Reading. The agency request includes a decrease of 2 million SGF for a one-time funding included in the FY 2025 budget for the American Center for Reading facility improvements. Item number 5 is for PSU grants and scholarships. The agency requests $2.9 million for the Great Gorilla Scholarship and additional supplemental student grants. Item number 6, the Block 22 Gorilla Rising. The agency's 2025 request includes a decrease of $2.5 million for the Block 2022 Gorilla Rising project, which expands PSU's footprints in the community and allow them to partner with local business districts. The agency did not request funding for the budget year because the project is expected to be complete in 2025. Item number 7, STEM ecosystem. The agency request includes a decrease of $2.6 million for improvements to the STEM ecosystem, including upgrades to research labs and new equipment. The university received a $5 million grant from the National Institute of Standards and Technology and other funds for the project that must be expended by FY 2025. Item 8, the Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas. The agency request includes a decrease of $406,691 for student health fee funds. PSU has partnered with the Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas to provide better access to physical and mental health services on campus. The student health fee was reduced as a result of this partnership. And item number 9, all other adjustments. The agency request includes a decrease of $135,540, including a decrease of $149,519 SGF. The decrease is primarily due to a decrease in salaries and wages and capital improvements for housing systems and repairs. There's also an increase of the 12.7 FTE in FY 2026 to request maintaining funding for the previous positions noted in FY 2025. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on fiscal year 2026.
All right, thank you. Committee, any questions for fiscal year 2026? All right, seeing none, Brianna.
I'm going to move on to the capital budget. The agency submits a revised estimate of $39.7 million in capital improvement expenditures, including $10.6 million SGF. Item number 1, the NEVA prove-out facility. The agency requests $3.7 million for the NEMA prove-out facility improvements. The NEMA prove-out facility supports innovation and economic development. The facility assists in moving conceptual products from proof of concept to pilot scale within the research center. Item 2, the agency requests $2 million SGF to expand the current facility in Woods Hall, which will increase space and allow the program to provide for more evaluations and provide clients with updated professional environment. The American Center for Reading provides in-person intervention for families that live in the region and training for professionals. Item 3 is deferred maintenance. The agency requests $6.7 million special revenue funds for deferred maintenance projects, which include but are not limited to HVAC replacements, roof replacements, and plumbing projects. If we move to page 10, item 4, the Overman Student Center, the agency requests $250,000 special revenue funds for maintenance projects that include elevator jack replacements and roofing repairs. The Overman Student Center provides faculty, staff, and students and alumni services to meet the needs of daily life on campus. Item 5, the agency requests $200,000 from the Parking P Fund to repair potholes, cracks repairs, and resurfacing and sealing of asphalt across campus. Item number 6, the agency requests $5 million federal ARPA to purchase existing building for the PSU Block 22 project. This funding was distributed by the Department of Commerce. And item number 7, building rehab and repair. The agency requests $18.4 million educational building funds for multiple rehab and repair projects, including but not limited to HVAC repairs, roof replacements, plumbing projects. This includes projects at a student fee-funded facilities, demolition of Shirk Hall and Shirk Annex, where KRPS Public Radio is housed. Moving on to FY 2026, the agency requests $5.3 million in capital improvement expenditures. Item number 1, deferred maintenance. The agency requests $1 million from special revenue funds for deferred maintenance projects, which include but are not limited to HVAC replacements, roof replacements, and plumbing projects. Item number 2, the agency requests $250,000 for special revenue funds for maintenance projects that include elevator jacks replacements, roofing repairs. Item number 3, the agency requests $200,000 from the parking fee fund to repair potholes, crack repairs, and resurfacing and sealing of asphalt across campus. And then item number 4, the agency requests $620,000 EBF for multiple rehab and repair projects, including but not limited to HVAC repairs, roof replacements, and plumbing projects. And with that, I will stand for questions for capital budget.
All right, thank you. Committee, any questions? Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brianna, can you describe exactly the special revenue funds that are being used for these deferred maintenance projects for fiscal year 26? Do you have any more information about?
Are you referring to item 1 on page 10?
Item 1 or 2, or they both cite special revenue funds, so.
So number 1 is from the Deferred Maintenance Support Fund. So yesterday I described that the universities have set aside specific funds for deferred maintenance, so that's what this is for. And then the Overman Student Center, which is a student center, has its own fund, so that is coming from that fund as well.
Okay, thank you. But do you know if any of that comes through Educational Building Fund, then get inserted into their own funds, or?
Representative, the funds for EBF funds, they would have projects allocated to them, and they're supposed to use those funds specifically for those projects. To my understanding, there is no switching of funds or intercrossing for those funds.
Okay, will that be the same case for the additional dollars that I guess the legislature enacted outside of the Educational Building Fund? It's a 6-year, I guess, commitment for capital improvement. I'm just trying to understand where all the money's coming from, because we have several pots of money for deferred maintenance.
Brianna?
So the Educational Building Fund, there's projects that the universities have assigned that the board has reviewed for those. State capital renewal also has projects that are approved. Deferred maintenance projects, when it comes from the Deferred Maintenance Fund, are something that's the funds that the university puts aside. I think Mr. Chair, if I may speak, it may be helpful to have a comprehensive overview of all of these funds that I can type up so that we know where the different pots of money are for improvement projects.
That'd be helpful. Thank you. Any other questions for Brianna? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the University of Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That first page gives an overview. We're going to move to page 2 for SGF reappropriation. The agency had $5.5 million in unspent funds and unspent SGF monies reappropriated from FY24 into FY 2025 for multiple programs, including $4.5 million for state capital renewal, $139,284 for demolition, and $760,809 for the Kansas Geological Survey. The agency had $18.4 million in EBF funds, money reappropriated from FY24 to FY 2025. Item 3, there are no supplemental requests. Item 4, for the DEI adjustment, KU had $8.4 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025. Item 5, KU was awarded $5.4 million of these funds for the State Capital Renewal Initiative. Item number 6, for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant Split, the agency requests 4.1 million SGF in funding for FY 2025 for student financial aid. Item number 7, for the operating adjustment, KU received 339,922 SGF for cybersecurity and 2 million SGF for the NISS playbook. If we move to page 4, item 8, needs-based aid, the legislature appropriated 2.5 million for needs-based aid. KU was awarded 470,427 of these funds. Item 9, capital improvements and other assistance. The agency revised estimate includes an increase of 105.3 million, all from restricted fee funds for capital projects. Of these funds, 100 million is for the 11th and Mississippi project, 3 million is for miscellaneous deferred maintenance projects, and 1 million is for the Mallet Room 101 and 2048 renovation. Additionally, there's an increase of 5.2 million in financial federal plus loan program and a small increase in the financial aid federal subsidized loan program. Item 10, the deferred maintenance projects. The agency revised estimate includes an increase of 2.7 million for deferred maintenance projects, including the Sunnyside Avenue reconstruction, Green Hall renovation, and other upgrades and repairs. Item 11, salaries and wages. The agency revised request includes 40.8 million, all from special revenue funds for increases in the category of salaries and wages. The increase is primarily due to salaries and wages for regular employees and the instructional services and research program. Increases are due to increased support services to manage and support large classroom sizes and programs with rising enrollment, Jayhawk Global Online Instruction, and investment in human resources to support faculty, staff, and student employees. The increase is also due to expenditures for graduate teaching students and employee holiday pay. And item number 12, the agency revised estimate includes an increase of 35 million, all educational building fund for rehab and repair projects. Projects include 16.4 million for the zone chiller water plant, 9.1 million for Lindley Hall rooftop HVAC, 1.4 million for the Green Hall third floor renovation, and 2 million for miscellaneous projects. The remaining 6 million are for smaller projects, including water plant projects, renovation projects, and wiring. Item number 13 on the top of page 5. The agency revised estimate includes 3.3 million, all from the Housing Operation Fund. These funds include 3 million for capital improvement projects to repair elevator and fire alarms in student housing. The remaining 307,000 is to repair a sleeping porch in Miller Hall and clean the exterior of McCarthy Hall. ARPA projects, the agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 42.5 million in federal ARPA monies for capital improvement projects due to reduced estimates for the KU Gateway project and Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center. The decrease is partially offset by an increase of 2.7 million for the Kansas Geological Survey Lab Facilities Project and 800,000 for cybersecurity classroom renovations. All other adjustments on item 15, the agency revised request adds 2.9 million for all other adjustments and a decrease of 127.5 FTE for graduate students. The increases are primarily in contractual services and commodities. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on FY 2025.
All right, thank you, Brianna. So I guess my question in regards to item number 14, these were reduced estimates for the KU Gateway project and the KLETC?
Mr. Chair, yes. When speaking with the budget office, there's reduced estimates, not by much, but when speaking with the agency, they do fully expect to spend all of their ARPA funds. So we're going to get some clarification on the discrepancy with that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so just in context again, in reference, I noticed on the Board of Regents, their administration line item doubled. It went from like 7 million to 18 million. And then I'm looking here at the University of Kansas, and for FTE positions, I know that we don't necessarily fund per FTE positions, but it gives you a it gives you a check of where money's going. They increase FTEs by 285 in a year. They maintained that in 2026. I know we're on 2025, but do we know where that's, and by the way, the majority of all the Regent schools have also increased FTEs except for Emporia. So with that, do we know if that's majority administration, or are we getting brand-new programs, or are these federal FTEs that are coming in?
Brianna?
Chairman, so yes, some of the FTE increase you will see here and in KU Med are for federal FTEs so that they can meet the requirements for those grants. They're also for increasing student classes and instruction, and then primarily for the bigger 3 universities is for research purposes.
Representative Williams?
Okay, and I think more clarity will be available to us when we look at how the enrollment population is changing, and if this correlates with that enrollment population, or are these, to your point, just research grants that add, FTEs, but they're not for instructional purposes? Because, so anyway, just a concern. Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to 2025? All right, see none. Brianna, you may move on to 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 6, item 1, there are no enhancement requests. Item number 2 is for the diversity, equity, inclusion adjustment. KU has $8.4 million restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025 and carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. Item number 3, student financial aid. KU had $4.1 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025 and carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. Salaries and wages, item 4. The agency request includes an addition of $41.3 million, all from special revenue funds for increases in the categories of salaries and wages. These increases are primarily due to increased salaries and wages for regular employees in the instructional services and research programs. Increases are due to need for additional support services to manage and support large class sizes and programs with rising enrollment, the Jayhawk Global Online Instruction, and investment in human resources to support faculty, staff, and students and employees. Item number 5 is commodities. The agency request includes an addition of $6.7 million, all from special revenue funds for commodities. The largest increase we see in commodities are for food for human consumption, instructional services, and auxiliary programs, as well as research and office supplies. Item 6 is for non-federal grant compensation. The agency request includes $18.1 million, all from restricted fee fund. The increase of $12.2 million primarily in salary and wages for research. The FY 2025 budget is based on FY 2023 actuals, which did not account for the increase and was charged to the restricted fee fund for FY 2024. The FY 2026 budget is based on the FY 2024 actuals, and that reflects the $12.2 million increase. And then additionally, the financial aid and federal plus loan program increases $5.2 million, and the financial aid federal subsidized loan program has also a small increase. Item 7, and also top of page 8, the agency request includes $3.4 million in federal funds. The FY 2025 estimate was based on those 2023 actuals and did not include an account increase of $3 million in research related to federal grants charged to the federal fund account in FY 2024. So the FY 2026 budget is based on the FY 2024 actuals, which includes that $3 million increase. Item 8, student union. The agency request includes an increase of $3.2 million from the student union fund. The increase in funds is due to a larger than expected incoming class, so that those funds will increase. Item 9, deferred maintenance projects. The agency request includes $3.3 million, all from deferred maintenance fund. Funded projects include $2.7 for the Sunnyside reconstruction, $2 million for a Lindley Hall rooftop replacement, and $2.2 million for the West Campus medium voltage system. Item number 10 is the State Water Plan Fund. The agency requests $1.7 million from the State Water Plan Fund to meet the Water Office new metrics. I believe my colleague Luke Drury discussed those. This includes $1 million for statewide groundwater quality monitoring and $700,000 for airborne electromagnetic survey of the Ogalla Aquifer. Item 11, the agency request includes a decrease of $53 million all federal ARPA funds for multiple capital improvement projects. The decrease of $50 million is due to the university not requesting additional funds for the KU Gateway project in FY 2026, and the decrease of $3 million is due to new estimates for the KU Law Enforcement Training Center project. The FY 2025 estimate for the KLETC project was $20 million, and FY 2025 has been reduced to $17 million. All other adjustments, the agency request includes an increase of $3.4 million, including an increase of $1.1 million SGF and the deletion of 127.5 FTE. The SGF increase is primarily attributable to increased student financial aid. The all funds increase is primarily attributable to increases in contractual services for research and capital improvements. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on FY 2026.
All right, committee, are there any questions? President Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, that ARPA project that was in both and the reduction, I was supplied yesterday with a sheet that had a list of ARPA spending, and I didn't see that match on there. I don't see this Gateway project listed on that sheet from yesterday.
I believe it's under the challenge grants.
Okay.
University challenge grants is where that funding was at.
Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to fiscal year 2026? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On number 6, just trying to get my handle around that. That comment about additionally the financial aid federal plus loan program increased $5.2 million, and then the rest of that statement. So that says a small increase. So how much do we have in that now? And I was thinking the plus program had to do where the student borrowed the money and the parent signed. So I'm wondering where does the grant and scholarships come into that picture? Maybe that program's changed. I just wanted a little detail on that program.
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, so when looking at the budget, there's all other assistance, which is primarily for scholarships. So that $5.2 million is just an increase we're seeing in that program specifically. And then because I didn't detail each individual line item, there's just a smaller increase for the federal subsidized loan program.
Senator Fagg.
Okay, I need to think about that one.
Any other further questions? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the State Water Plan Fund number 10 on page 8, apparently KDHE doesn't monitor the groundwater quality, or are these coordinated efforts? Do you have any information on that? There's 1.7 million, and also there's the word draft, so it's hard for me to see, but some kind of survey of the Ogallala Aquifer. So, but I'm just curious why this is not a KDHE responsibility.
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I can't speak to why it would not be KDHE, but the Kansas Geological Survey is a part of the State Water Plan Fund, and the Water Plan Fund has included these new metrics in their budget. So these are just those 2 line items that they've broken out to meet those metrics.
Okay, I guess that's something Mr. Chairman will pursue to get an answer elsewhere. Thank you.
Any other questions for 2026? All right, seeing none, Brianna.
If we move to page 10, these are the capital improvements. The agency submits a revised estimate of $221 million, including $10 million SGF for capital improvement expenditures. Item 1 is state capital renewal projects. The agency revised estimate includes $10 million for state capital renewal projects, including $3.4 million for Strong Hall chilled water distiller, $1.7 million for the phase 2 of the Sunnyside Avenue reconstruction, $1.3 million for multiple projects, including roofing, firearms, and back generators, and the remaining $3.3 million is for smaller projects and upgrades and repairs. Item 2 is for state demolition. The agency revised estimate includes $139,284 for demolition projects, including $448,344 to raise the facilities administration building and $90,941 to raise the entomology lab. Item 3, the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center. The agency revised estimate includes $4 million all federal ARPA dollars for the KLETC. This project is to develop the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center and campus in Yoder, Kansas, and to strengthen basic training and expand professional development, implement campus security, and advance law enforcement training, organize with campus zones, and enhance the campus environment. If we move to page 11, item 4, the agency revised estimate includes $117 million federal ARPA dollars and restricted fee funds for the 11th and Mississippi project. The 11th and Mississippi is becoming the North Gateway to the University of Kansas with direct access to the new Jayhawk Welcome Center, the Kansas Memorial Union, Spencer Museum of Art, David Booth Kansas Memorial, and the David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium. And then item number 5 is the agency revised estimate includes $74.7 million all from special revenue funds for projects, including $35 million from the Educational Building Fund for rehab and repair, $1.8 million for student housing projects, $3 million for parking projects, $3.3 million for housing system operation projects, and $105.2 million for renovation and repair. If we move on to FY 2026, you will see similar projects for the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center. The agency requests $16 million all federal ARPA dollars for the KLETC. And then item number 2, the agency requests $13.7 million all special revenue funds for projects, including $6.9 million for deferred maintenance, $3 million for Lewis Hall renovations, $2.8 million for the Phase 2 of Sunnyside Avenue reconstruction, $2.2 million for the West Campus median voltage, and $1 million for the Kansas Geological Survey laboratory upgrades. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on capital budget.
All right, committee, any questions? Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brianna, I didn't see anything in the report that notated any capital improvement for Smith Hall at KU. As you remember, there was a proviso that limited the university from demolishing or using SGF money for demolishing, I think, through fiscal year 25. But do you know if there's anything in there regarding Smith Hall or the statue or the physical or the stained glass seal that's on a part of the building? Is there anything included in capital improvement for 25 or 26 for that?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I'm unsure. I can go back and review and see if I can find anything for Smith Hall preservation.
It's my knowledge from the university that there is no intention of demolishing Smith Hall.
Correct.
After we put that language in the budget. Now, as far as capital upgrades on that, I'd have to check with the university, but they are not demolishing Smith Hall. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Brianna, you may move on to the University of Kansas Medical Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 1 gives an overview of the university. Page 2, item 1, SGF reappropriations. The agency carried over $9.1 million in unspent SGF monies from FY24 into FY25 for multiple programs, including $4,965 for student financial aid, $2.5 million for psychiatric medical loans, $36,095 for OBGYN medical loans, $30,000 for OBGYN medical residency bridging loans, $4,730 for stem cell therapy, $6.5 million for the Health Science Center, and $20,000 for the Rural Health Bridging Psychiatry. Item number 2 for Educational Building Fund, the agency carried over $3.3 million in unspent EBF monies from FY 2024 to FY 2025. Item 3, there are no supplemental requests at this time. Item 4 for the DEI adjustment, KUMC had $5.9 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025. Item number 5, state capital renewal. The 2024 legislature appropriated $20 million SGF to the Kansas Board of Regents. KUMC was awarded $2.3 million of these funds in FY 2025. Student financial aid. The 2024 legislature appropriated $2.18 million to the State Finance Council to distribute so that the Board of Regents could distribute Kansas Comprehensive Grant 50/50. The agency requests 1.1 million SGF in funding for FY 2025 for student financial aid. Cybersecurity, the 2024 legislature appropriated funds to the Board of Regents for cybersecurity. KUMC received 214,835 SGF for this purpose. If we move to item 4, page 4, item 8, the 2024 legislature approved 2.5 million SGF to the Board of Regents for need-based aid. KUMC was awarded 128,550 of these funds for need-based aid. Item number 9, KU Cancer Center operations. The agency revised estimate includes increased expenditures of 20.4 million, all from the restricted fee fund. There are multiple sources of revenue and expenses related to this fund, including contracts with external sources in which the university receives reimbursement for expenses incurred. The increase in FY 2025 is due to new contracts incurred during FY 2025 and increased reimbursement from the Kansas University Endowment Association for expenses related to the Cancer Center. Item 10 is for research grants. The agency revised estimate includes 7 million, all from federal funds, for research grants. The agency's initial budget submission included estimated expenditures for the research program based on grant requirements and available resources at the time. The agency receives multiple grants throughout the year. However, the adjusted revenue and adjust revenue and expenditures. This increase of 7 million reflects a more accurate budget based on the current array of grants. The agency also requests 103.5 FTE for medical personnel and administrative staff to fulfill staffing needs for various grants. Item 11, Educational Building Fund. The agency's revised estimate includes 7 million EBF for capital improvement and deferred maintenance projects. These projects include campus fire alarm upgrades, elevator renewals, small compressors, and multiple projects for renovation. Item 12, School of Health Professionals. The agency's revised estimate includes 4.8 million, all from the Sponsored Research Overhead Fund for contractual services related to the new hybrid physical therapy program in the School of Health Professions and the nursing program in Salina, Kansas. Due to decrease of funding from the Salina community and increased costs associated with the upkeep of the nursing program, additional funding is necessary. If we move to page 5, item 13, the agency's revised estimate includes 3.2 million, all from the Sponsored Research Overhead Fund for capital improvement projects such as rehab and remodeling of the Cardiovascular Research Office, the Delp and Wesco buildings, and the Hickson Tissue Culture Lab. Item 14, Graduate Medical Program Salaries Reimbursement. The agency's revised estimate includes 2.7 million, all from the Direct Medical Reimbursement Fund to adjust salary expenditures for residents in the Graduate Medical Education Program. The University of Kansas Health System sets wages for graduate medical residents and reimburses the university for the expenditure. KUMC submits the initial budget with an estimated number of residents and wage expenditures. The expenditure has been adjusted based on more current data. All expenses incurred related to this program are reimbursed by the hospital and have no effect on the university's budget. Item 15, the Johnson County Education Research Triangle. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of 1.5 million, all from the JOCO Education Research Fund for the KU Cancer Center and the KU Alzheimer's Disease Center. The two centers resubmitted an FY 2025 budget that included a reduction of 1.5 million to lower expenditure due to lower expenditures for capital renovations at the Fairway location and payroll. Item number 16 is all other adjustments. The agency's revised estimate includes 543,188, all from special revenue funds for contractual services and salaries and wages across KUMC programs. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions? Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going to number 10, the research grants. So is that 7 million, is that the total amount that they're getting, or is that an addition to what they were already getting? Because 103.5 FT positions For $7 million, it seems like it's quite a bit. You know, it's quite a few positions, and if it's all going, I guess that's my question, is the 7 million the total amount, or is that just an increase of already what they're getting? And then how long are those grants to hire 103 people? Is it a long-term grant?
Brianna?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure the specificity of each of these grants, but this 7 million is just an increase from what was originally approved to what they've resubmitted as the revised. This just shows that increase of $7 million.
So they've gotten more before, there's more than 7 million there?
Correct.
Okay. But you don't know how long they are, the 103.5 FT positions. I mean, is that multiple years, or that they're going to get those grants?
Brianna?
Mr. Chair, I would have to get clarification on how the FTE are tied to the grant and how long each of these grants are.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Fack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On number 12, since we're on that page, I was wondering, it says due to a decrease of funding from the Salina community. So my question was, how much was decreased, and where was that money coming from, Salina? Was that a sales tax, or exactly, anybody know the story to that part of it?
Brianna?
Mr. Chair, I would have to get some clarification from the agency on that, the contribution from Salina.
Any other questions? All right, see none. Brianna, you may move on to 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 6, item 1, there are no enhancement requests currently for this budget. Item number 2, the 2024 legislature appropriated 35.7 and deleted 35.7 in operating expenditures for the 9 universities. KUMC had 5.9 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that is carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. Student financial aid, KU had 1.1 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that is carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. KUMC Cancer Research Facility, the 2024 legislature appropriated 75 million SGF for the University of Kansas Medical Cancer Research Facility in FY 2025. The center will give patients access to innovative clinical trials and groundbreaking therapies. This decrease reflects the funds being expended for this project in FY 2025. Item number 5, the 2024 legislature appropriated 750,000 SGF for family residency programs, which include Smoky Hill, Ascension Via Christi, and the Wesley Family Medicine residency programs in FY 2025. Item 6, the agency requests an addition of 23.1 million, all from restricted fee funds, for salaries and wages and contractual services associated with the new cancer center. These expenditures are expected to be reimbursed by the Endowment Association, hospital, and other external entities. Item 7, the agency requests 9.3 million, all from federal funds, for research grants. The agency's initial budget submission included estimated expenditures for research programs based on grant requirements and available resources at the time. The agency receives multiple grants throughout the year, however that adjusts the revenue and expenditures. The increase of 9.3 million reflects a more accurate budget based on the current array of grants. The agency requests 103.5 FTE for medical personnel and administrative staff to fulfill staffing needs for various grants. Item 8, the graduate medical program. Salary reimbursement, the agency requests 4.1 million, all from the direct reimbursement fund to adjust salary expenditures for residents in the graduate medical education program. Item number 9, the agency requests 2.7 million, all from the sponsored research overhead fund for contractual services related to starting a new hybrid physical therapy program in the School of Health Professions and the School of Nursing program in Salina, Kansas, similar to the items in FY 2025. 10, faculty of distinction. The agency request includes 1.4 million, all from the faculty of distinction fund due to adjustments of interest rates. The statute created the Kansas Partner Faculty Distinction Program that is administered by KBOR. This funding uses private gifts to attract and retain faculty of distinction. Item 11, similar to FY 2024, the agency request includes $1.3 million, all from the JOCO Education Research Fund for KU Cancer and KU Alzheimer's Center. The two centers resubmitted an FY 2025 budget that included reduced expenditures for capital renovations at the Fairway location and payroll. If we move to page 9, item 12, KU hospital reimbursement, the agency request includes $1.5 million, all from the Hospital Authority Fund for salaries and wages in FY 2026. The agency currently has an annual agreement with the hospital to have services such as public safety, snow removal, and mail services provided by KUMC and to be reimbursed by the hospital. The salaries and wages decrease in FY 2026 due to the hospital providing its own security officers. Traditionally, police officers and security have been provided to KU by KUMC. Item 13 is Cancer Center bonding language. The agency requests bonding authority to supplement donor, federal, and state funds for the completion of the KUMC Cancer Center. The agency requests that the language, including authorization of $100 million in bonds, be included in the appropriations bill for FY 2026. Number 14 is all other adjustments. The agency request includes $2.2 million, including $824,875 SGF for a variety of expenditures and adjustments in FY 2026. These adjustments are primarily for capital improvements in salaries and wages, partially offset by other assistance for federal Pell Grants and the medical student loan program. And with that, I will stand for questions on FY 2026.
All right, committee, any questions for fiscal year 2026? All right, seeing none. Brianna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move on to the capital improvement section. For FY 25, the agency submits an estimate of $125.1 million, including $83.7 million SGF and $103 million for educational building fund. Item number 1 is EBF R&R. The agency requests $10.3 million, all from the EBF fund for rehab and repair projects, including but not limited to fire alarm upgrades, small compressor replacements, elevator renewals, and renovations to Wesco Hall. Item 2, parking maintenance. The agency revised estimate includes $2.1 million, all from the parking fee fund for projects at the Kansas City campus and Wichita campus for all surface lots and parking structures. Item number 3, State General Fund rehab and repair. The agency revised estimate includes $8.7 million for rehab and repair projects. Item 4, Special Revenue Fund rehab and repair. The agency revised estimate includes $19.4 million, all from special revenue funds for building rehab and repair projects. And then item 5, Cancer Center. The agency revised estimate includes $75 million SGF for the cancer research facility. The facility provides patients access to innovative clinical trials and groundbreaking therapies on site. If we move to page 11, for fiscal year 2026, the agency requests $20.5 million in capital improvement expenditures. Item 1, the agency requests $2.2 million, all from the parking fee fund for projects at the Kansas City and Wichita campus for all surface lots and parking structures. And then item number 2, building rehab and repair. The agency requests $9.8 million, all from special revenue funds for building rehab and repair projects. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on capital projects.
All right, committee, are there any questions? All right, seeing none, Brianna, you may move on to Wichita State University.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 1 is the overview for Wichita State University. If we move to page 2, item 1, that is SGF reappropriation. The agency has $6.2 million in unspent SGF monies reappropriated from FY 2024 to FY 2025 for state capital renewal. That is $506,651. Demolition is $1.1 million. Aviation research has $746,675, and the Health Science Center has $3.7 million. Item 2 is the Educational Building Fund. The agency has $2.1 million in EBF monies reappropriated from FY 24 to FY 25. Item 3, the supplemental requests are reflected in the Board of Regents budgets. Item 4 is the DEI adjustment. Wichita State had $4.9 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025. Item number 5 is student financial aid for the comprehensive grant. The agency requests $4.2 million of SGF in funding for FY 2025. Item number 6 is state capital renewal. Wichita State was awarded $2.2 million of these funds in FY 2025. Item number 7 is the operating adjustment. Wichita State received $250,972 SGF for cybersecurity and $1.5 million SGF for the NIST playbook. If we move to page 4, item 8, for need-based aid, Wichita State was awarded $487,317 SGF for need-based aid and recruitment. Item number 9, the revised estimate includes $71.2 million all federal ARPA funds for the Wichita Biomedical Campus, also known as the Health Science Center. Item number 10 is the Health Collaboration Fund. The agency revised estimate includes an increase of $30 million all special revenue funds in the Health Collaboration Fund. This fund was created at both Wichita State and KU to collect funds for the Health Science Center project. Item number 11 is federal grants. The agency revised estimate includes $19.9 million all federal funds for grants. These grants include funding from the Department of Defense, which requires increased expenditures in capital improvement and contractual services. Item number 12, Educational Building Fund. The agency request includes $6.8 million EBF for multiple projects, including the Marcus Welcome Center addition, the McKnight Art Center ventilation project, the library special collections, HVAC, the geology building remodel, and other building rehab and repairs. Item 13 is salaries and wages. The agency revised estimate includes a decrease of $23 million, all from the restricted fee funds for salaries for administrative research staff. If we move to page 5, item 14, the agency request includes $1.8 million all special revenue funds. The increase is primarily in salaries and wages and contractual services for research initiatives. The agency requests 189.2 FTE, primarily for research and for the public service program. And with that, I will stand for questions on FY 2025.
All right, thank you. Committee, are there any questions for fiscal year 2025? All right, seeing none, Brianna, you may move on to 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 6, item 1, enhancement requests will be reflected in the Board of Regents budgets. Item number 2, the DEI adjustment. Wichita State had $4.9 million restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that carried over into FY 26 as a part of the agency's base budget. Item 3, for the student financial aid, Wichita State had $4.2 million SGF restored by the State Finance Council in FY 2025, and that is carried over into FY 2026 as a part of the agency's base budget. Item 4, aviation research. There is a decrease of $5 million SGF for aviation research. The 2024 legislature appropriated $5 million SGF to purchase equipment and instructional resources for the National Center for Aviation Training. The decrease reflects funds being expended in FY 24 and not budgeted in FY 2026. Capital improvement projects. The agency revised estimate includes $14.2 million all from the general fee fund for capital improvement projects. This includes $10 million for the Department of Geology remodel, addressing deferred maintenance issues, and additional space for the Museum of Anthropology. The remaining $4 million is for NIAR advanced manufacturing to support aviation needs, and $200,000 for the McKnight ventilation project. Item 6 is for federal grants. The agency request includes an increase of $4 million all federal funds for grants. These grants include funding from the Department of Defense, which require increased expenditures in capital improvements and contractual services. Item 7, salaries and wages and capital improvements. The agency requests a decrease of $52.7, all from restricted fee funds. The decrease is largely due to capital improvement expenditures for NIAR Hub and manufacturing and research that were budgeted in FY 25 and did not recur in FY 2026. In addition, the agency decreased expenditures for salaries and wages in the research program. Item 8, the Wichita Biomedical Campus. The agency request includes a decrease of $54.3 all federal funds for the Wichita Biomedical Campus project, and then there's a description of that below. And then item 9, the agency request includes an increase of $852,476, including $560,138, all for other adjustments. The increase is primarily in contractual services for aviation research, business partnerships, which was appropriated last year, and the digital transformation program. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions on FY 2026.
All right, thank you, Brianna. Questions for fiscal year 2026? Representative Helgerson.
When we dealt with the Wichita State and KU biomedical campus, there were several figures initially saying how much the project was going to cost, 300, whatever it was. I think my memory is we put in 71 million.
Correct.
There was a significant amount of money that had to be raised from the private sector. Where are they at on that?
Brianna.
Mr. Chair, I can get an update on the funding for this project.
Yeah.
Representative Helgerson.
And second, there were several projects Wichita State and other universities had that were added in provisos at the end of the session last year. Can you give us an update sometime on those provisos that were added and where they stand? Doesn't have to be now, go back, but I'd be interested to know what was done and where they're at.
Well, I don't know if it'd be helpful, but I think it was at one of our first meetings, and I believe Senator Petty asked for research to come up with all the provisos that were added, and I believe they have that information because I think they've shared it with Senator Petty and myself, and that'd be the revisers that drafted that information. So we can have that circulated to all the committee members.
Well, in particular, I know that there was a $10 million request to put in a housing at Wichita State that was not put in, or at least I don't think it was put in. Be interesting to know if it's where it stands at this point.
Right. Any other questions in regard to fiscal year 2026? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On number 8, the needs-based aid, I was wondering in the kind of in the middle of that said these funds for need-based aid and recruitment. So this isn't just for Wichita State, but I would find it interesting on need-based aid, some kind of breakdown between how much money actually gets to the student and how much is in recruitment. If they could come up with that sometime. I'm sure you don't have that right now, but I'd be interested in that. Thank you.
We can have that circulated. Any other questions for fiscal year 2026? All right, seeing none, Brianna, you may move on.
Okay, page 9 for capital improvements. There's a breakdown of SGF projects and then focusing on the Wichita Biomedical Campus. Item number 1, SGF projects. The agency revised estimate includes $3.8 million for SGF, for several projects, including $2.5 million for improvements to the Henron HVAC, which improves ventilation and dust collection in Henron Hall. $1.4 million for state capital renewal and demolition. This includes repairs, upgrades to exterior repairs and the raising of the International Education Center Annex and several dormitories. Item 2, special revenue fund projects. The agency revised estimate includes $61.2 million for multiple projects from special revenue funds, including $42 million for the National Institute for Aviation Research, NIAR Hub, Advanced Manufacturing Research, $6.8 million for miscellaneous projects, $7.1 million for the University Stadium project, and $3.2 million for the Wilkins Stadium project. Item 3, the agency revised estimate includes $155.5 million all special revenue funds for the Wichita Biomedical Campus. The health center is 470,000 square feet building complex that co-locates programs and clinics at the KU School of Medicine, KU School of Pharmacy, Wichita State University College of Health Professionals, and WSU Tech Health Professions. Item 4, so that item was for special revenue. This item 4 is SGF. The agency revised estimate includes $3.8 million SGF for the Wichita Biomedical Campus. Item 5 is for building rehab and repair for Educational Building Fund. The agency revised estimate includes $8.9 million from EBF for rehab and repair projects, $2.3 million for McKnight ventilation project, $750,000 for the geology building remodel, and $5.8 million in building rehab and repair. And for fiscal year 2026, there's $45.2 million in capital improvement expenditures. Item 1, which for most of these projects, the agency revised estimate includes $34.3 million, all from special revenue funds for multiple projects, including $10 million for the geology building remodel, $8.7 million for the University Stadium project, and $6.5 million for NIR Hub research. And with that, Mr. Chair, we'll stand for questions on capital improvement projects.
All right, committee, are there any questions in regards to capital improvements for Wichita State University? I've not seen any. All right, thank you, Brianna. You had the bulk of the work this morning, so. Committee, we're just going to go ahead and work through and wrap this up as soon as we can. So the next thing that we have is there's going to be a review of the statutory transfers previously included in the budget bills, and so David Weiss with the Office of the Reviser of Statutes is going to provide that information with us. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Weiss with the Revisor's Office. You're getting passed a memo passed out from our office. It just kind of provides a listing of the statutes that were included in either Senate Bill 28, the mega bill from last year, or the Omnibus Bill House Bill 2551. There were a couple of statutes that you might remember, the Local Ad Valorem Tax Reduction Fund and the County and City Revenue Sharing Fund that were included, but both those funds were repealed as part of the special session tax bill, Senate Bill 1, so they would no longer need to be addressed. Many of these have been included in the budget bills for many years. It's usually a suspension or a cap or some sort of other modification to a transfer that is in a substantive statute that then the legislature has identified and decided to modify as part of the budget process. So those are listed there on that bulleted list. I would like to point out just a couple in particular that the legislature had special attention to last year. That is KSA 748711. That's at the bottom of page 1 of the memo. There was a transfer of an aggregate up to $10 million in FY 2025. And then up to $8 million in 2026. This is the lottery ticket vending machine revenue that would be transferred, with 75% of that going to the Community Crisis Stabilization Centers Fund and the 25% to the Clubhouse Model Program Fund. So that amount had been, it was $9 million, I think, in FY24, $10 million, changed to $10 million by the legislature in 2025, and then it would be $8 million in 26 and thereafter under current law. The second one is the second bullet on page 2 there, KSA 756707. This involves those transfers to from the State General Fund to the Budget Stabilization Fund. This is the 50% of the certified excess amounts above the April consensus revenue forecast. The legislature said make no transfer based on the certification for fiscal year 2024. So, but there is still language in there allowing that certification and that transfer to be made based on the 2025 numbers. And then finally, the last bullet there, KSA 82A955. This was actually as part of the omnibus bill. There was a $45 million transfer from the State General Fund to the State Water Plan Fund in fiscal year 2025. It's $35 million in fiscal year 2026, and that's sort of the intended amount, but the legislature decided to put in that additional $10 million transfer for the current fiscal year. And you might notice that the kind of what is considered sort of the classic, I guess, if you will, transfer from the State General Fund to the State Water Plan Fund of $6 million is not included in this list because the legislature has allowed that full amount to be transferred the last several years that had been in prior sessions that had been suspended or reduced, but that transfer has been made in full for the last several years. in addition to the $2 million that gets transferred from the EDIF, the Economic Development Initiatives Fund, to the State Water Plan Fund. That full amount of the transfer has been allowed as well, so has not been included in recent budget bills. The second piece of the memo is sort of other provisions that are included traditionally in the mega bill. These involve appeals that exceed expenditure limitations upon approval of the State Finance Council, with some exceptions there. These are taken verbatim from Senate Bill 28. Instead of trying to summarize it, I decided it's probably best if you see that actual language. This also allows for the appropriation of unencumbered balance and special revenue funds to be that were there in fiscal 24 to be appropriated for fiscal year 2025. Same thing with the bond special revenue funds. The federal grants portion there, that was section 200 of Senate Bill 28 on the bottom of page 3. That I know there's been some discussion about federal grants and how those are applied, that this is kind of the language in the budget bill each year that allows for the expenditures of those federal grants as they come in during kind of the interim, the off-session time. And then finally, on the back page is reappropriations for those correctional institutions building fund, the educational building fund, and the state institutions building fund. Those are those funds that are that have revenue from those statewide property tax levies. And then the last piece is the audit services fund, Division of Post Audits, that this allows for the expenditure limitation imposed on that fund to be increased if they get money from other agencies. With that, Mr. Chairman, I can stand for any questions because.
All right, committee, are there any questions for David? All right, you were thorough. No questions. All right, next and the last item that we have with the 5 meetings that we've had is the final review and recommendations by the committee. So right now I will open it up. There are a few items that I do have, and we kind of talked about this throughout the budgets that we had in the last few days, and that is in regards, and I would probably leave this open for research. It's not going to be entirely specific in regards to reappropriations, but have them analyze all of the state general fund reappropriations, and then also all the other funds, because we did have some reappropriations that was going on specifically with the Economic Development Initiatives Fund. And so they could review all the other funds and make an assessment of the reappropriations that can come back to either those funds or to the state general fund, because what we're seeing, and that has been evident, is that with these reappropriations is they become embedded in the state general fund ask or the ask itself if it's coming from another fund. So that would be the first motion that I have. Is there a second? Seconded by the speaker. Any discussion? All right, see none, so I move on my motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. The next, and I was talking to Dylan earlier, and I mentioned this earlier today in regards to the Build Kansas program. We have a substantial amount of money sitting in that fund that is probably most likely not going to be exhausted in the remaining year of fiscal year 25, because we have a carryover from 24. We had an allocation in 25, and then by the legislation that was passed, we're going to have another allocation on July 1st for fiscal year 2026 for $50 million. As chairman of that committee, and there are many members of that committee sitting with us in this committee here today, we're not going to utilize the funds that we already have allocated, let alone the additional $50 million in fiscal year 2026. So my motion is going to be suspending the transfer of $45 million. It would still keep $5 million in for the operations of the infrastructure hub for the Build Kansas program and the contracts that we have with the grant writers to work with the small communities in trying to acquire and be approved for the federal grants. So it would be retaining the $5 million, but the $45 million would not be transferred to the Build Kansas program. It would remain in the state general fund. And the condition is if we would ever exhaust all the funds that are currently in the Build Kansas Fund, then it authorizes the State Finance Council to approve the amount needed to be transferred into Build Kansas. So that's my motion, seconded by the Speaker. Discussion on the motion. Senator Petty.
And I support your motion, but if I understand this correctly, so then there would be the continuation of transferring the $5 million so that the program could remain operational with with the funds that are currently in there as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Is that $5 million? I'm sorry. Is that $5 million then annually as long as the Build Kansas program is in?
Yeah, it's $5 million annually for the operations of that, and that's obviously the individuals that work for the infrastructure hub. It's also for the contracts that we have with the outside grant writers to help with the communities. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I move on my motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Any other discussion in regards to items to go into the budget bill? I believe Senator Billinger has one that they're talking it over right now. Representative Carpenter.
Mr. Chair, I'll kill time till Senator Billinger gets back. So if you remember last week when we were here, in the KDAD's budget, they reappropriated $280 million from 2025, and then they lapsed $150 million of that money in 2026. And then they asked for $80 million worth of cuts. I just want you guys to remember that when we're looking at the budget and come out of the budget. I have no idea why they lapsed the $150 million and then turned around and asked for $80 million. But I just want everyone to realize that when we start doing a deep dive in, that's kind of the issue. And one of the big things that they lapsed and did not spend was the Medicaid add-on for our nursing homes. And that was $47 million all funds and $18 million in SGF. So I just want to make note so that when we get farther into that, I'll have more answers, but it's kind of, I'm not sure why you would lapse $150 million and spend 80 of that. So, but anyway, thank you.
All right, any other further discussion? I guess David was just telling me that we need to have a motion in regards to the transfers that he just had delivered to us. The only one, and this kind of goes with another motion I was going to make, and I'll go ahead and make that after I make the motion in regards to the transfers that have been in place in the budget bills. And I would say the only two I would modify that I made marks next to would be one, and I'll explain this later when I make the motion on the Economic Development Initiatives Fund. That would be KSA 12-5256, the transferring of $2 million in 26 from EDIF to the State Housing Trust Fund. And like I said, I'll explain that later. And then I would go back to what we have in statute on KSA 74-8711, going to $8 million in fiscal year 2026, which is the way it's already worded, I guess, for the Clubhouse Model Program. So those are the only, and I don't think we really need to make a change to that because that's what it says in statute. Yeah, so that's the only change that I make is in regards to KSA 12-5256. Yeah, not making that transfer, but all the other transfers that we have done in the budget bill, that would be my motion. Seconded by the Speaker. Discussion on the motion. Representative Helgerson.
Well, part of my concern is we have lengthy hearings during the session, and I'll mention especially about the clubhouse model, that you're taking it from 10 million down to 8.
No, that's the way it's already in statute. It says up to 8 million in fiscal year 2026, and David just said that we don't need to have, there's no changes to that transfer.
Oh, there's no changes in the transfer.
No, it was just 10 million in fiscal year 2025 and up
Okay.
to 8 million in fiscal year 2026. And that's what it says in statute.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Petty.
I just want some clarification. That's not 8 million that's going to the clubhouse model. That's 8 million that's going to the Community Crisis Stabilization Center Fund, 25% to the clubhouse model, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm confused, and that's pretty easily done, but you're leaving the transfer at 10 million?
No, it's going to what it says in statute at up to 8.
Okay, so, and that was done by a proviso last year?
Yes, to change it from, it was either an amendment or a proviso.
It was a proviso that I put in the budget. It was raising it from 8 to 10.
Right.
And you're taking it back to 8.
No, statute already says 8. I kind of misspoke before. I was thinking it was 10 million and 26, but it's KSA 74-8711 already for fiscal year 2026 says up to 8 million, which is what is in statute. There's no change.
Okay, so basically to replace that, your motion, I would need another proviso this year to raise that back up to 10.
Well, yeah, when we work the budget, yes.
Okay. Just so we're clear on.
Yeah, my motion does not include making any changes to that particular transfer. It's already what's stipulated in statute
This year.
for 26.
So it'll be 10 million this year?
It already has been allocated 10 million for this year because
it
we're in
has?
fiscal year 2025.
But 2026 is the next.
Is the next one, and statute already says up to 8.
Right. So to raise it to 10, I would need a new proviso.
Yes.
To raise that to 10. Okay. Just so I'm clear.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I move on my motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And so now I'll explain, there's 2 EDIF adjustments that I've been looking at as we were looking and talking about that yesterday in regards to EDIF and the agencies have requested, and it's on, we have the green sheet that was passed it out, $19 million over in requests from what we received from the lottery for EDIF. And so there are 2 items. One we've kind of talked about at length. There's $1 million that's being transferred to the Department of Commerce in regards to broadband development. Again, as we kind of talked about with the 25 million that had been transferred from Ike, that was all put into place before we received all these other funds in regards to broadband from the federal government or other sources. And I believe I mentioned it earlier, we're sitting around where $630 million has been transferred into broadband. So that would, for fiscal year 26, eliminate the $1 million transfer. I mean, the total amount is $1,191,000 is what the agency request is. So that would zero that out, and then also that would also, as I mentioned, not transfer the $2 million to the State Housing Trust Fund, because in the last couple of years, we have put, in excess of $50, $60 million into that State Housing Trust Fund. So I don't think we need to transfer $2 million into that fund. And then that would also let research evaluate the other items in Economic Development Initiatives Fund to basically bring that down to about $16 million that is over what we're receiving from the lottery fund. All right, seconded by the speaker. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Senator Billinger.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. What'd you say, Doug? I'd like to make a motion that we have the State Finance Council Fund created. All ARPA monies lapsed or returned to the ARPA fund shall be deposited into the State Finance Council Grant Fund in fiscal years 25, 26, and 27. State Finance Council can act to expend at any time between the legislature, whether the legislature is in session or not, expended by a majority of the legislature members voting to approve it. Basically, there are some ARPA funds, which we seen yesterday, are $6.4 million that was approved, but it wasn't spent, so it's still there. Plus, there's several matching ARPA projects out there that haven't been completed, and they may not have their matches, so that money may come back. And December 31st, all that money has to be spent or assigned, obligated in order to not send it back to the federal government. So by doing this, any ARPA funds that are not, they may have been allocated and not spent, they can't come back. Wherever they come back, they'll go to this fund, and then we won't have to send them back to the federal government. Questions?
First, is there a second? Second by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the motion. Senator Petty.
Thank you. And Senator Bellinger, if I understand this, so any funds that, any ARPA funds that have not been encumbered will, so as of December 31st, 2024, will come back to the State Finance Council to be, and did you include interest? Did you say interest? No?
No, but we can add that on. And I think it's probably a good idea.
Didn't want to plant a seed in your, there, but, that have not been, I mean, I noticed in a couple of places, as we were going through the Regent's budgets, that there were some ARPA funds that they still had that had not been expended, but if they've been encumbered, then they're not going to, this would not deal with those funds. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
It's just the ones that have been allocated that aren't going to be used.
And you said 25, 26, and 27?
Correct.
Representative Helgerson.
Could we go through the dates again when, it has to be spent by, is it December 30? Now, I said spent, not allocated, but spent by, yeah, isn't, what's the, has to be spent or allocated? Out the door, contracted, or not contracted, out the door. Okay.
All right, let's hold decorum in the committee room. Dylan, did you want to share the dates?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, sorry. So the funds have to be obligated. That means that they have been either in an account, they're encumbered, whatever it is, they've been dedicated to a project, okay, by December 31st of this year, so in 2 weeks, okay? And the final date in which the expenditure deadline, that means the funds are out the door, they've gone out for the project, they've been paid, that will be December 31st, 2026. Okay, so that's midpoint fiscal year 2027. Questions?
Representative Helgerson.
Could you go through those dates one more time?
Certainly. So obligations are done by the end of this year, and out the door.
End of this year, and when you say end of this year,
I'm
calendar
talking
year?
calendar year, so December 31st, 2024. And then, the expenditure deadline is December 31st, 2026. And the speaker is correct, it would be fiscal year 2025.
Any other questions in regards to the motion? Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think Senator Petty brings up a good point. I was going to ask about the interest. Are we going to include that in this motion?
I would say we should.
I wrote it in.
Oh, he's already wrote it in. Is that okay with the second? All right, so the modification is the interest is included as well. Representative Helgerson.
I think, and Jill can state something, I think that there's some difference of opinion on ARPA funds that we receive and the interests and what we can do and whether or not there are some specific deadlines. Are there different deadlines for the interest on the ARPA funds versus the ARPA funds?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
They have to be allocated and spent by the same timeframes, the
My
interest?
understanding. If Dylan might have different information, but that was my understanding.
Dylan.
I don't have any other information that would contradict what Jill said.
Well, if I could just add some context, I just want ARPA done. That's my personal opinion. Any other questions or comments? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, would you restate your motion?
Senator Billinger.
Yes. We're going to create the State Finance Council Fund. All ARPA monies lapsed or returned to the ARPA fund shall be deposited in the State Finance Grant Fund, including any interest earned in fiscal years 25, 26, and 27. State Finance Council can act to expend at any time, whether the legislature is in session or not, expended by a majority vote of the legislative members to approve.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So typically, the State Finance Council, there is a veto option of the governor, correct? So this motion says that it can still be expended with the majority. And does that disregard the veto, or is the veto still in play?
Jill.
So it would be best in the motion to designate whether it's majority members or, because some state finance councils take unanimous members of the legislature. But state finance council action always requires the governor to vote positively on it. So what Chairman Billinger's motion is that by state finance council action, it would be the governor with the approval of a majority of legislative members, which would be the governor plus 5.
So just the members of the State Finance Council, not the legislative body.
Correct.
With,
Representative
but
Williams.
it must include the governor's approval. Yes.
Yes.
Must include the governor's, and this clock that's starting starts December 31st of 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
And again, we have an estimate provided of, well, we've got 6.4 million, but we think that there's quite a few additional dollars out there. And do we have any idea of the interest total?
Dylan.
I have a couple different estimates on interest. You're probably looking at somewhere around $60 million, accruing at a rate of about $1.6 million per month.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would only ask that our committees, our respective committees, be provided back the continuous updates on how these expenditures, especially the interest, that's significant amount of interest money, are expended. And I would hope that our respective bodies would have input and that on these decisions. Thank you.
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully understand what the motion does and the intent, and it's always hard to turn down money, but offering a different perspective. Federal government's $36 trillion in debt. I realize this would be just pennies if we give it back to them, but it is all taxpayer money, and so this may sound a little nutty, but in an attempt to do our little part on the federal debt deficit, it would be debt, not deficit, I guess. I'm going to pose a motion.
Substitute motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What's your motion? Substitute motion. Oh, you just have a motion, not?
No, I said I'm going to oppose.
Oh, you're going to oppose the motion. I think you're going to make a substitute motion.
Well, I can certainly, Mr. Chairman, make a substitute motion.
That's fine.
But I don't think I'd get a second, and I don't know how many votes I would get.
Representative Curtis. All right. Senator Petty.
So I know this answer, but I just want clarification. So this motion, which it's clawing back ARPA funds that the obligations have lapsed, they still have a deadline on them, correct?
I believe so, yes. Dylan? Yeah, they do.
So we're still talking about functioning within the same deadline.
Yes, as the federal dollars were in the first place. Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. So we're saying that if whatever funds, ARPA funds, haven't been obligated by the end of this calendar year, December 31st, right? I'm envisioning a mad scramble that those will be obligated in some way or another between now and the end of this calendar year. Is that, am I understanding that's a possibility? The use it or lose it, correct?
Well, yeah, you probably could, but I'll have Dylan answer that.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, so my understanding is all ARPA funds, except for interest, which is its own special beast, have been obligated. So this motion is really targeting those situations in which maybe an appropriation has been made for a specific project for a projector, okay? However, they only spend $500 on the projector rather than $1,000 on the projector. So you have a $500 left over. So what happens to that $500 in excess appropriation? It's those situations in which the obligation ends up being in excess of the actual expenditures. And it deals with interest.
Representative Helgerson.
I agree with the intent, but I have some problems. So the money that's been returned by the interest money, we've never obligated it. That was done by one person. And we're accepting it now as gospel. And I don't agree with that. Whether or not it's 19 million for the docking office building, which none of us heard about until after it was done, or $7 million to the consultants, whatever it is. You know, I agree that we want to tie the money up and make sure that it's there, but I'm not agreeing to all the assessments. And I think the subcommittees, if they're doing their work, should go back in and ask the questions and say, X university, you have 100 million in ARPA funds. Are you really going to use it, and when is it going to be encumbered? And they should be able then to say, you know, come back to this committee and say, it's not going to be used, or I doubt it is, and make the recommendations. And as much as I love the Finance Council, I don't want to turn over my vote to them. And as a last resort, to make sure we don't lose it, I agree. But I think that there's a couple other steps that should be looked at first. And in particular, I don't agree with the money being expended on the interest right now.
Any further discussion on the motion? Senator Petty.
So I'm having a little trouble with this timeline because, okay, I guess I'm asking Dylan. So that all ARPA funds need to be obligated by December 31st, 2024. Is this correct?
Yes.
Well, that includes, if that's the case, even within this motion, that includes that the State Finance Council, if this would pass, would also have to have it, have these funds obligated if something's coming back. I do believe that today is the 19th, so.
Dylan.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, so it really comes down to the idea of the term obligation. I think the intent of the motion and my understanding of the motion is that this creates an obligation for the monies to go to this fund. And so it basically creates a catch-all. So there's no point at which the funds do not have an outstanding obligation, so that they stay within the state. That is my understanding of the intent of the motion.
I can understand that intention, but how do we get to keep them in the state if, all right, I'm making an assumption here that somehow our research knows where these, specifically you referred to like a projector that costs $500 instead of $1,000. So that's $500. So I mean, these funds have gone lots of different places. And we did see some of that reference in the budget, but in this time frame, I'm trying to, I mean, I can better understand the interest because that really doesn't fit in there, doesn't fit into that time frame, but any other dollars would.
I think Jill has a comment.
So how we're going to draft it is, the obligation is, like, for the projector, let's just do that, and it was obligated for the projector. And so if there's $500 left by this proviso, or by this section in the law, we are going to obligate it to the State Finance Council grant fund. And so it will be obligated in that fund, and then we will have to be expended from that fund in the next 2 years.
Okay.
Senator Petty.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying once it's obligated to that fund, then now we would have until December 31st of 26 to expend?
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2026 is when the money has to be gone. We're not going to be in session at that time, so we have to give some sort of an ability for that money to be spent by 26. So this will allow the State Finance Council to spend that money before before December 31st of 2026. That's all it's doing. I think we're making it very, very much more complicated than what we need to do. So I support this motion.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I still want to go back to that interest because that's a significant amount of money, that $60 million. Where is it located right now? Is it in PMIB? And number two, is that allocated? Do we have any idea if any of that's allocated? What were the governor's plans with this money? Because it certainly wasn't made transparent to us where it is or what its use is going to be. Or, I mean, from my perspective, I have no idea where it is or what its uses were going to be. And if that's the case, do we really need to include that part in the motion? Can we just take that part and set it aside in a separate motion for the legislature? Because we have more time. We are not in a rush to do something.
It all sits in one account. So when the interest was pulled back, there was a discussion last week at LBC, and Representative Helgerson and I were on the front cover of the Topeka Capital Journal about it. When the $32 million were taken back or returned from Washburn University in regards to a pro football training facility, is how it was explained to us in March, it goes back to the ARPA account. So it's not sitting there now as interest, it's basically the balance of ARPA. But it was interest money that was taken out initially and given to Washburn. That's why I think the interest is being included, is to tie that interest down so it can't be used, by the governor as it was last March. when we didn't have any idea until Dylan actually said, you know, I need to talk to you because there's money missing out of the ARPA interest because he was monitoring the accounts. And so we don't want somebody to go in and arbitrarily just take that money out without having some control of the balance and the interest earned. So, and I would also keep in mind, okay, so we're not passing the budget bill today in this committee. I mean, this is still subject to appropriations and ways and means, and who knows what's going to happen in a few months. But what it's saying is that we have our eyes on that account and the interest earned. That's what this motion, I think, is the intent. And so hopefully it's not arbitrarily spent by the executive branch. Representative Williams.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. I just wanted to be sure there weren't any other monies that had been invested and are in another pot somewhere. Thank you.
No, it's all back in the ARPA account that was initially set up when we received the money from the federal government. Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any insight in then how, then once this fund is established, then how we will consider the funding going forward once that is? Is there any criteria, like how, any insight into that, like afterwards?
Do you have any insight? Maker of the motion?
No, I don't. You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, we could assign it to Capers if we didn't have any place else to go, but I'm sure this will give time to make sure that wherever it would be allocated to, that it could be used in that particular item.
Any other further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Senator Bellinger, you may close in your motion.
I move my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. Any further discussion? Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I just wanted to get a point of clarification from you on your motion regarding allowing KLRD to evaluate the other items to bring back, in the EDIF, to bring back that down to 60 million. We'll simply be delivering information to you to make decisions. KLRD
That's fine.
In no way, shape, or form a decision maker.
I would say go back to like 2024 and make an assessment on what the funding criteria was. But yeah, I mean, and again, it is going to be subject to the committee process with appropriations and ways and means. So, I mean, it's not ironclad. And like I said before, we're not passing the bill out today and making it an effect. Any further discussion? Yeah. All right. Seeing none, I want to commend everybody for the lengthy meetings that we have had and going through all of the nearly 100 budgets in the state of Kansas in a very timely fashion. I'm sure we could have spent a lot more time asking more questions, but again, that's the legislative process when we reconvene on January 13th. For those of you that are going to be serving on appropriations, you might get ready for a meeting at the Call of the Rail on Monday, January 13th for bill introductions. Yeah. Okay. Dylan is saying that they have follow-up information from KHP and the Healing Arts. So that'll probably be in your inbox, in your emails. So